Welcome in to Check the Mic Round 1 recap. We're back. We didn't take much of a break. We got on the right side. We're ready to go. Sam, how you feeling, man? Round 1's in the books.
Pretty good. I thought it was a fun first round. I thought we got some chalky picks, but the teams were different because we got some trades and then we got some really fun picks later on in the draft. And like the thing that we'll get to at some point in this recap show, a ton of really talented players still on the board going into round 2.
Yeah, always. I mean, I said that, made that crazy prediction. Hey, we're going to get to the end of round 1 and say, can't believe these players that we expected to go, maybe even top 15, and we have that. So we'll get to that probably in a couple hours here. We used to do the recap show. Like I said, we used to go, hey, what's the biggest story? Let's talk about the big storylines. And we said, what the heck? Let's just go pick by pick. Let's just do the whole thing. If you're listening in audio world, you might be driving to work here on a Friday morning. We just want to make sure we have the whole recap here for you. So we are going to go pick by pick here. We're going to do the same thing tomorrow night too. Not pick by pick, maybe in rounds 2 and 3, but we'll recap day 2 tomorrow night in some form or fashion. Also be live for day 2. So let's get it started, Sam. We're going pick by pick in round 1. Cam Ward, number 1 to the Tennessee Titans. I felt bad because we didn't get to give enough Titans Cam Ward analysis at the top. Things were getting really quick after that, but the expected number 1 overall pick, Cam Ward to the Titans.
Yeah. The pick that we all knew was, going to happen for a while. I think it makes sense. Cam Ward, we said in the show, he's the easiest guy to sell yourself on in terms of the upside, what he could be. This world of everyone is now looking for a top 8 to 10 quarterback, forget starter, forget, guy that can just come in and do a job. Can you go toe to toe with these elite quarterback prospects in the playoffs, right? You can talk yourself into that for Cam Ward easier than you can for, I think, any of these other guys. The arm talent is really good, easy velocity, easy power, can do it from any angle. He's got the athleticism. He's not, elite in that regard, but he's strong, fast, extends plays very well. And then, look, there's some boneheaded mistakes in there, right? He walks that tightrope on the one end of the spectrum of on the one end of which is Josh Allen and on the other end of which is Will Levis, right? Like he's on that spectrum. Question is, how far is he going to be? Now, like Josh Allen, he offsets the boneheaded plays with some big plays, with some real impressive high-end plays, right? Much more than Will Levis ever did, right? So that's good. That bodes well for what he's going to be. But you do at least have to acknowledge that, look, there's some rough plays in there as well.
Yeah, I think I explained on our show here, and I definitely did on Titans radio or Tennessee radio talking about Cam Ward. There will be some plays, we've discussed it, right? If you watch him in isolation, they'll look like Will Levis. Like, this is a bad decision that a Will Levis would make. Now, I think the reasons for it are different, right? I think Will Levis just panics a little bit under, when you have to make quick decisions. He makes bad decisions when you have to act quickly. Cam Ward has this aggressive DNA that just works both for and against him. So I think that's the difference. And I reference all the time the fact that when he does it, it doesn't spiral, right? He didn't have too many games where he straight up spiraled. Virginia Tech, he had multiple turnover-worthy plays, but he was still coming back with big-time throws. Cal, bad pick 6. They're down 3 scores. He leads Miami back. Those things helped sell me on Cam Ward. And then he's another one of those guys. There's a few quarterbacks, when you hear them speak, they just have this confidence, like not crazy, not brashness, but a confidence. Geno Smith, I think, has it. Baker Mayfield has it. And it doesn't always show, right? Those guys were late bloomers. Cam Ward, I think, has this confidence. I think Michael Penix Jr. had a little bit of that. Cam Ward's got this confidence, plays that style. And the last thing I'll say, the last 10 years of the NFL, most of the quarterbacks who have become stars were toolsy, somewhat projects. Mahomes, Allen, you could say Lamar. I don't know if he was a project, but he's depending on incredible tools to develop into a superstar. Justin Herbert, Jordan Love, like there's a slew of them. And Ward's in that type of category of toolsy quarterback. Now, there's the guys that didn't work out, Anthony Richardson and others, right? But that's what they're trying to bet on here at number 1 overall in Tennessee.
And I think it's just so much easier for NFL teams to talk themselves into obvious physical tools than it is a guy whose selling point is the mental side of things, right? May have marginal physical tools. And this is, I think, why you're seeing the gap between Cam Ward and Jaxson Dart, Shedeur Sanders, the other guys, right? And that the Will Levis sort of crazy plays, Josh Allen stuff, there's that saying that there's a fine line between genius and insanity. And it not only is that true, but I think it's a blurrier line than it used to be, right? Like Brett Favre treaded that fine line. And most of the time, he was on the right side of it. You saw the amazing improvisation Brett Favre plays. And every now and again, you'd get a boneheaded play and it would cost them a game. But people like Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes have come along and they've blurred that line. It's like you're not supposed to be able to do the stuff that they're able to do all the time. That's usually too much. Like NFL coaches would usually be like, dude, what are you doing? You can't do that stuff. But they're able to do it a lot. So now, like a lot of it is basically just, I don't know that there are rules for that anymore. It's like, how often can you get away with it, right? Like he does some stuff that I think is very similar to what Will Levis does, but he's made it work more often. And if he's able to make it work all the time, or at least much more often than Levis can, it might be fine. Like it might be the same reason. It might be the same exact thing, but he's able to do it more often, and he's able to make more plays to offset it. So it's not a problem.
One other thing I'll say, incarnate word to Washington State, to Miami. He had this trajectory of adding, going to a higher level, but his game has also improved too, right? If he came out, he actually, after the Washington State season, 2023, he declared for the draft for a minute and then went into the portal. If he came out in last year's draft, certainly not going round 1, and he might be in Spencer Rattler territory in round 5. Now, right. Is that a massive red flag? I don't think so. Joe Burrow was probably a 3rd-round pick and then came back and became the number 1 overall pick and was correctly the number 1 pick. This has happened. Kyler Murray came out of nowhere. Mitchell Trubisky was there's enough one-year wonders that worked out and didn't work out. Trubisky, Haskins on the bad side, Mac Jones probably on the bad side, Kyler Murray, Joe Burrow on the good side. So there's not like this crazy precedent for, hey, this guy kind of came out of nowhere to become the number 1 overall pick, or at least a 1st-rounder.
I mean, aside from anything else, it's a great business decision by him.
You
went back to school and you can't, instead of a sort of 5th-round day 3 pick, you're the 1st overall pick.
All right, so that's what we have. And then the next 5 picks were in a lot of mock drafts. They just had different teams. The Jacksonville Jaguars at number 2 trade up to go get Travis Hunter. And they give up. There's a few fringe 4th and 6th rounders in there. The big haul here is to move from 5 to 2. They gave up next year's 1st-rounder and this year's 2nd-rounder. So that's 2 massive picks to move up 3 spots to go get Travis Hunter. So from a Jags perspective, what are your thoughts? And we'll talk about this from a Browns perspective.
Well, this was like, one of the biggest things that happened in this 1st round. There had been talk, right? Once we got towards the draft week, you start hearing the insiders' reports and suddenly people are talking. And from the get-go, like people had been mocking the Jags getting Mason Graham, and like that makes so much sense. Why would they do anything else? But as soon as the sort of real info starts to filter out, people were immediately like, "Hey, watch out for Jacksonville doing something different, going offense." And suddenly they were in the Ashton Jeanty sweepstakes. And then the closer we got, it's like, actually, Jacksonville's going to do something big. And then, a couple hours before the draft, it's like Jacksonville's making calls. They're trying to trade. And they end up going up to 2, and they get Travis Hunter. And, man, I mean, look, Travis Hunter, unique talent, right? Best wide receiver in this draft, the best corner in this draft at the same time. I mean, it's worth hammering over and over again how utterly ridiculous that is, because it is completely insane. And Jacksonville goes and gets him, now potentially pairs him with Brian Thomas Jr. at wide receiver in an offense that already has Trevor Lawrence. It's already got, talented playmakers, and you can use him at corner. Just phenomenal. I know we were lower on Brian Thomas Jr. a year ago, but that dude looked like the best receiver in the draft class last season as a rookie. And Travis Hunter looks like the best receiver from this draft class. The 2 of them together could be absolutely insane.
Yeah, I mean, I think he works on both sides of the ball for the Jags. I think he fits into the depth chart on both sides of the ball. I'm intrigued by what you're saying, what this does to the offense. I mean, as a player, we mentioned his ball skills as a corner, his ball skills as a receiver. He's just dynamic after the catch. I think, man, that 1-2 punch for Trevor Lawrence looks fantastic for the Jags. You just have this dynamic of James Gladstone comes in, 34-year-old Sean McVay protege, and this is the first move in Jacksonville. I was asking the question, hey, they have a whole process with the Rams, and if you understand what's going on behind the scenes, it's really tough to like port the whole process and the way you evaluate and the way you run your system. You can't port that over and do it in 2 months. So they're kind of evaluating players in this draft off of, I don't know, less information maybe than they would normally have. I don't know exactly. But they came out and made this power move. It's not hard to evaluate Travis Hunter. And there was all these rumors that, hey, there's a team in the top 10 who really, really loves him. I mean, I talked to another team who was picking nowhere near the top 10, and they knew they had no chance at Travis Hunter. And they were telling me, hey, this guy, he's so good. Such a good dude. Such a good personality. Such a good everything. Like, we love him. Like, we can't come close to taking him. But this is what we know about him, and we know other teams feel the same.
Yeah, and I think there's a narrative out there that Travis Hunter is a good wide receiver and a good cornerback, but he's not great at either. And he's only being talked about as this special prospect because he plays both sides of the ball. And I think that started when people were comparing his Heisman Trophy candidacy to Ashton Jeanty, and his sort of campaign, if you like, got reduced down to, snaps. He played this snaps. And it was bullshit then. And it's bullshit now. Travis Hunter, I think, is an elite wide receiver prospect. I don't know if I would rank him above the 3 guys from last year who would be number 1 in most draft classes, but I think he'd be right there behind them. Like, I would probably have ranked him as wide receiver 4 last year, close to those 3. He's got sick ball skills. He's got an amazing body control, like contortionist ability with the ball in the air. He's got 4 drops in his career at wide receiver. That's 3%. That's Larry Fitzgerald territory. He's got some of the best hands in the draft. He's got elite quickness, change of direction. That's all sick. I think his speed is pretty good. Maybe not like true long speed, but the other 2 phases, the instant get off, the quick acceleration phase. He looks like a kind of slightly less polished Devontae Smith to me. I think he is an elite wide receiver prospect. I don't think he's only being hyped up because he plays both positions. And remember, it started off and people were seeing him as a cornerback first and foremost. The Browns, when we thought they were picking him at 2, were talking about him as they see him as a wide receiver first and foremost. Liam Cohen has apparently already come out and said he'll play primarily on offense to begin with. When we went to the combine, everybody was saying he's wide receiver 1. They've drafted the best wide receiver in this draft at number 2 overall. And by the way, he might also be their nickel corner or their 4th corner or a rotational corner, whatever. To me, treat that as a bonus. They've drafted the best wide receiver in the class at 2 overall, and the other stuff is a bonus.
The thing is, though, I think he's not good enough. Would you make that trade for Marvin Harrison Jr. if you're the Jags?
I mean, I wouldn't make the trade, but I wouldn't make the trade, but I don't think that, but I would take him at 2.
The reason why the trade happens is because he can be 1.5 players. Even if he's a wide receiver first, he can be 1.5 to 2 players. So you can jokingly justify, we gave up next year's first rounder. Oh, all right, well, that's Travis Hunter because he's 2 players. But you can legitimately try to get that value out of him, whether it is all the various things that we said, play receiver first, play a little bit of corner during the season. Hey, if next year the Jags have a great receiver in the draft and they draft him and they move Travis Hunter to corner, and now him and Tyson Campbell are the 1-2 punch at corner in 2026. You can do that. That's the flexibility that he affords you. I also think this is just like he is such a dude, man, that they love him so much, and a football player. And for him to pull off what he did at Colorado without the extra meeting time, to do that within a game, to be able to make adjustments on both sides of the ball, that stuff's special. I don't want to downplay what Travis Hunter is as a story, as a 2-way player at the NFL level or a 1.5-way player. I don't care. It is a special story. And the Jags leaned into that and said, that's also worth it for us to go get this special football player.
It is, but I also want to quash this idea that he's not actually that great at either one of them. And he's only seen as that level of prospect because he's, this massive, he's a composite of both of them. I think if you just watched his wide receiver tape, you would conclude he's a top 5 draft pick. He's an elite prospect. Did you see? I saw somebody else bring this up, and I thought it was a valid point. You know the way receiver gloves now are like a cheat code, right? Those things, the C-tac things, like it's impossible to drop the football once it hits your glove. Those things they're like glue. He went to his pro day, which is effectively like the biggest interview of his life, and did his workout with no gloves. He just went out there and raw dogged it with bare hands and caught everything. That to me is like baller intent. That is like a statement of, I am so damn good. I don't need a glove. I can go out there and just catch everything you throw in my direction because I am awesome. I think that means something. Like that dude knows he's got hands of glue and just went out there and showed everybody.
Shout out to Weeb. We do have super chats on again, I guess, for this stream. I wasn't sure if we were doing it for this stream as well. $100 donation from Weeb. Appreciate you, man. He said, have a few beers.
Thank you, sir.
On me, guys. Yes, thank you. Much appreciated. We're just having fun talking some NFL draft. So I wanted to talk about this from the Browns' perspective as well. They make the pick at 5. Let's just cover their Mason Graham pick at 5. So we're going slow. Should we go out of order, or do you want to circle back to their process?
No, we'll just go in order.
So I love Travis Hunter. Love him as a football player. I said if I had the choice between Travis Hunter and all the other players in this draft, I'd take Travis Hunter. QBs aside, right? That world aside. I take Hunter. I want to play that experiment. I want to be on that side. That said, I love what the Browns have done here because they have a first rounder next year and they have an extra 2 now. They flip some other later picks. And I think that's fine for the Browns. They get Mason Graham, and we haven't seen these guys play NFL football yet, so I could still say this without, backtracking. We didn't have enough. I don't know if we had enough Mason Graham, Abdul Carter discussions. I think they're similar prospects. I think they're at the same level of prospect. I would take Carter over Mason Graham, but I think Mason Graham's in this bucket of it's Hunter, it's Carter, and to me it's Mason Graham. And everybody, and then the other players are on the fringe of blue chip. You could say Jeanty, but he's a running back, so I don't count him. So I love this move for the Browns. I think you got one of the 3 best players in the draft in an extra 1. And when you get to pick at the first or second pick of the draft, that's what you're afforded. The opportunity to either take a franchise quarterback or to turn it into multiple players. And I just love that. I love it as a process. And I think it coincides with getting out from the chains of Deshaun Watson, because look, there's 2 ways that screwed you over, Sam. It screwed you over financially and in picks, right? Most of the time it's just picks or it's just money. It was both for the Browns. And now they've gone from, hey, sneaky good roster. Watch out. They're solid everywhere. Whole offensive line needs an overhaul. They need playmakers. They need defensive line talent. All their corners have contracts coming up. They need a full reset of this roster. I think they have the time to do it. They're not going to compete with the Ravens and Bengals in this division. Probably not the Steelers either. Take the time to reset, and they're doing it. Extra first round next year, extra 2, top 3 player in the draft in Mason Graham. I love this for the Browns.
Yeah, I mean, my judgment is still reserved to see what they do at quarterback, because I don't think that they can run into the season with the answers that they have. I think the number 2 overall pick was a potential way out of that Deshaun Watson nightmare scenario that they put themselves in. They made effectively the single worst personnel move in NFL history. And one of the few ways out of that is to find a quarterback on a rookie contract. And they weren't supposed to be in that position. They were supposed to be too good to be drafting there. So number 2 was a chance of doing that. They passed up that opportunity. And interestingly now, I mean, Jackson Dart went in the first round. We'll get to that later. Shedeur Sanders is still on the board. He fell out of the first round. Cleveland is sitting there at 33 at the top of the second round. They could still draft Shedeur Sanders. And this becomes a Will Levis dynamic, right? Where we didn't like him at 2. We didn't like him at 5. We'll take him at 33 and roll the dice on that. If that's the way it turns out, I'm all for it. If they just decide to punt on quarterback completely, I'm less keen on it.
That we'll talk about that one for sure. I mean, if they took Shedeur and we said, look, coming into the draft, the Browns could come away with 1 Shedeur Sanders, which you would agree with, or they could come away with Mason Graham, Shedeur Sanders, and an extra 1 and an extra 2. Okay, yeah. That's good process. That's really well done. I love that. I love it for the Browns. I don't know how it's going to turn out. I'm a mystery box guy. They picked up a couple mystery boxes in Mason Graham, but I think it's the right process. I also think I love Travis Hunter. Remember, I love him. As aggressive as this decision is for the Jags, it's just as aggressive for the Browns. Like that's a tough thing to give up. You gave up Travis Hunter. You gave up the opportunity at a Travis Hunter or even Abdul Carter, but you gave up Hunter. That's a lot to give up, but I think they got the right reward. I think they got the right return, we'll say. So I don't think this is honestly. I think the Andrew Berry, most of what they've done has been good, with the one awful decision which undid everything. And if that was an ownership move, I think that's another part of this. Berry's got job security. I think they realize they have a good process in place, and they screwed up the most important decision and undid everything that he did. And they're gonna claw it back. And I think this is a good first step to do it. That's my take. That's where I am.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there is such a thing as job security when you don't have a quarterback and you don't have a pathway to winning games. I think ultimately, even if it's not his fault, even if it was ownership driven, there's only so many rough seasons that ownership is willing to accept before they boot the guy out of the building. I mean, Bill Belichick had, all the job security in the world, and it didn't take that many losing seasons for them to be like, hey, Bill, thanks, bye-bye.
No, I understand, but I think this is the right move for the Browns. Mason Graham is a player. I think he's disruptive, block shedding violence, penetrating pass rusher, can play the run, doesn't anchor well. Who does besides Mykel Williams in this draft? Nobody. I think he's an absolute disruptor to go with Myles Garrett on that defensive line, and you get 2 extra picks for it. I think it's a fantastic move by the Browns. I like it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
All right. What happened at the 3rd pick? New York Giants. They go Abdul Carter. We're going to lump their 2 picks? Yeah, let's just lump their 2 picks in here, right? Let's just talk Giants.
Okay.
Abdul Carter at 3. This was the expected pick. We said the players went off the board in the right order. We thought Mason Graham was going 5 to the Jags for a while. Hunter at 2. They just flipped picks. And the Giants go Abdul Carter. As I was glancing through Twitter, they go right to a press conference here, right? They make the pick and they go to the press conference. So Joe Shane in the press conference said, Kayvon Thibodeau is going to be here, I guess. Thibodeau's heading into his 4th year. They have to pick up his 5th-year option. But now we're talking about a Giants defensive line. Dexter Lawrence in the middle. Abdul Carter, Brian Burns on both edges, along with Kayvon Thibodeau working the edge. Maybe Abdul Carter moves around. Fantastic defensive line now for the Giants. Abdul Carter at 3.
Yeah, the other blue chip player in this draft, a guy that, again, it's really easy to see why to sell yourself on what he can be. He was on, I think, everybody, basically a universal ranking of edge 1, the best edge rusher in this draft. And, it's pretty obvious. I mean, the guy has the explosion. He's got the bend. He's got the dip. He's got the speed, the quickness, the lateral agility, the ability to kind of, hop across like a whole gap and shoot inside on a counter move. But an interesting story, right? Because he basically did the Micah Parsons transition, linebacker to edge, but he did it in college. He didn't do it, college to the NFL or in the NFL. Last year was his first year playing as an edge rusher. And even within that year, you could see an amazing development curve from him. Early in the year, he's getting annihilated in the run game, and it's an awareness problem. Like, he just doesn't know how to read the game. He's getting destroyed by kick-out blocks from tight ends, and it's ugly, honestly. And then by the end of the year, he's crushing those blocks. He sees it coming. He's attacking it with the right shoulder. He's destroying those blocks. And in addition to that, you're seeing the same kind of development and growth from his pass rush arsenal. Like, his hand usage between the first couple of games and the end, insane, like night and day better. So you've got a guy with the speed, the physical tools to be elite, who's got a couple of elite moves already, and then who's already shown within one season the kind of development curve that he can go on. And I think that must have NFL coaches, positively drooling with how much better he could be at the next level, even though he's really good now.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what he's saying there, man. I think, again, I've said before, the last 10 years, there's 8 truly different level elite prospects, the Boses, Garrett, Will Anderson, Aiden Hutchinson. I think they're all in the same bucket. Chase Young. I think Carter's in the same bucket. The only difference there is all the other guys were just crazy productive their entire college career, for the most part, right? Productive, dominant, and really good athletes. Carter has 1 year playing. That's it. That's the only difference. You could say Hutch maybe had one decent year and then one great year, maybe the other similarity. So that's the only question. And like you said, Micah Parsons made the adjustment at the NFL level. Abdul Carter did it in college, and the trajectory is upward. And now you're talking about him and Burns coming off the edge. And if it is Thibodeau and Burns coming off the edge and Carter, who played linebacker last year, now he's your guy lining up in the A-gap or lining up over a guard while Dexter Lawrence is lining up as nose tackle, rushing the passer. You have options. You got to lean into that, right? We say all the time, you literally can never have too many pass rushers, too many defensive linemen. It's a great way to build a team, and the Giants make a good, smart decision here with Carter at 3. Now, you want to talk about their other pick, or do you want to wait?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, well, we might as well.
Yeah, let's knock out the Giants picks. Jaxson Dart. All the rumblings were that the Giants were trying to trade back into the first. We started hearing this around pick 20. I love this because the Eagles were trying to do this. They were trying to get up to 22. They could only move up to 31. They only moved up 1 pick. The Giants were trying and trying and trying. Somebody finally took their deal as the Houston Texans. They gave up a 3 this year, a late 3, and a 3 next year to move up 9 spots from 34 to 25 to take Jaxson Dart, Ole Miss quarterback. So it's not Shedeur Sanders as the second quarterback off the board. It is Jaxson Dart going to the Giants.
Yeah, I really like this move from them. Again, like if you're going to pick up the blue chip player at the top of the draft, you don't love the quarterbacks later on. You think you can come back in the bottom of the first and get them later on. That's fine. That makes sense to me if you think you can do it, and they were able to execute it. If you believe in the Jimmy Johnson trade chart, and I know you don't, it matched exactly. It was basically a wash, right? The picks that they gave up.
So much disdain in your voice as you said that to me.
I just know you don't. So if you discount, the future pick around the way that's supposed to work, and you tot up the picks they gave up, it basically matched exactly the pick that they got from Houston to make this move. The other reason I love it, look, I think the Giants is a great landing spot for any of these quarterbacks, whether it's Jaxson Dart, Jalen Milroe, Shedeur Sanders, Tyler Shuck, because with Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston on board, they should be QB3, right? Not just a backup, but like they don't need to start at all. You can be the 3rd quarterback on the depth chart. You can learn from the bench. And I think that's good for a few reasons. Number one, I think Jaxson Dart probably needs that coming from that Ole Miss offense. It's going to be a lot of work, I think, to get him to the kind of offense that he's going to be running at the next level. Number two, that offensive line with the Giants is still very much a work in progress. So let Russell Wilson deal with that. Let Jameis Winston deal with that. I don't want Jaxson Dart dealing with that as a rookie, or Shedeur Sanders or whoever else it would have been. I don't love Dart as a prospect, but I see there's talent there, right? He's got above average tools, size, arm, all these things I think are above average. None of them are necessarily great. They're certainly not where Cam Ward is. I don't think he's going to be a rushing threat at the next level, really. Maybe some scrambles when the play breaks down. He'll be able to run over a couple of people, but I don't love him I don't think you're getting anything out of him as a designed running threat. I think he has some of the same weaknesses as Shedeur Sanders. I worry about his tendency to try and escape sometimes because he's not good at it at all. But when he just drops back, reads it, and sees it, his trigger is like instant, I think. I think once he gets the green light in his head, the ball's in the air. It's just boom, fired. And I like that. I think he's got the ability to go through and process within an offense once you get him used to, this is an NFL offense now. This is what it's going to look like. There's going to be less, RPOs, play action. I mean, his play action rate was like off the charts insane, like 60% or something of his dropbacks. That's going to get cut down to like 20%, even less maybe. It's going to be a different world for him, but I like going to learn from the bench the way the Giants are able to afford him to do.
Yeah, Dart as a passer, I really liked his touch. I thought his accuracy up to 15, 20 yards was really good. Got to his check down. Had some nice anticipation throws in there. I didn't think he had great zip. Usually the quarterbacks at the top, other than like any first rounders, other than like Mac Jones over the last couple of years, they all have at least a good arm that you would say. I think Dart's on the lower end of that. I think Shedeur is on the average to lower end of that. It's not like a high RPM arm, but it's fine. And he made some nice plays outside of structure. Inconsistent throwing a deep ball. That's my quick hitting scouting report on Jaxson Dart. The other part is the pocket agility, right? I think he's a good runner, effective runner, aggressive runner, but not a great athlete. Maybe I'm underrating his athleticism. I didn't see pocket athleticism, though. Maybe he's fine as a runner. Pocket athleticism. So you're talking Giants offensive line. That's not a great fit, certainly not for year one. That's got to be the next priority for the Giants 5 years in a row now, 10 years in a row, fixing that offensive line. But it's a legitimate problem. He's not going to avoid the rush, and he took some sacks that he probably should have avoided.
Yeah, I was really concerned by that. Like, I actually think that might be a bigger problem than Shedeur, and Shedeur, that's his biggest Achilles heel. Now, Shedeur's numbers are worse, but I think his offensive line was a lot worse. Like, his pass protection was an absolute Greek tragedy with Colorado. Jaxson Dart didn't have that at Ole Miss, but he had back-to-back seasons of like a 19+% pressure to sack rate. Like, he had some really rough plays where he tried to escape pressure, and he's just not going to get away from people.
All right, we're going pick by pick. We just broke it a little bit because the Giants had 2 picks. So they picked at 3 for Abdul Carter. They traded back up to 25. Maybe we'll touch for the Texans fans tuning in. I liked the trade to trade down. They moved down 9 spots and picked up 2 threes. Johnson chart had it even, but I think if you're not taking a quarterback like the Texans, they're going to have a good option at 34, player there, and plus an extra 3 now and an extra 3 next year. So I think that's good process by Houston there.
Yeah, and they're going to have a ton of draft picks in this draft. So now, if you said that their biggest need was offensive line, like, you passed up some offensive linemen to do that, but I think you can say it's still a good process.
Yeah, I mean, when you're going through the mock draft sims through the last few weeks, there's a lot of 4th, 5th, 6th rounders who are at least intriguing. Like, Houston could sometimes recruiting classes bring in an entire offensive line, and you kind of see what sticks in college football. They might be able to bring in 4 guys in this draft, Houston, 4 offensive linemen, and then, see what sticks. So we'll see what they end up doing. Pick 4 is the Patriots. Again, it was the right player, Will Campbell, the player that everybody was talking about. Will Campbell is going to play left tackle for the New England Patriots. Been predicting this one for about 365 days here, Sam, even though we took a some roundabout turns to get here, but Will Campbell and the Patriots are here together, pick 4 overall.
Yeah, we got the first answer, which is he's going to be a tackle because you're not drafting a guard at 4 overall. Particularly the Patriots, like, their biggest need is the tackle spot rather than the guard, I think. So, Will Campbell comes in. Now you have the question of they've decided he can play tackle, right? You have his arm length was a big discussion point at the combine. It was below the 33-inch threshold that you need to be an offensive tackle at the NFL level. At his pro day, it was above the threshold. So you're like, well, does he meet the threshold or not? Interestingly, though, his wingspan is like the smallest wingspan that any tackle has had in the NFL, like, basically since it's been measured. So that's the outlier part of his measurements. But the other side of it is, number one, his athleticism is exceptionally good, right? Incredibly good 40 time, incredibly good movement skills. If you are going to make an exception for a guy who's got short arms and a weird wingspan, you're going to do it for a guy who's got the movement skills to make that not matter. And he does that. He's got really high-end athleticism. And that makes a difference. Like, it has a solid correlation to NFL success. And then the other question becomes, like, is his production good enough to warrant a top 5 overall pick? I think you can argue he's a step down from the elite tackle prospects like a Joe Alt. On the other hand, the Patriots had an acute need at tackle and maybe just needed to reach a little bit to force need effectively.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's a top 10 prospect, though. I mean, I don't want to dismiss that. This wasn't like they went to, pick 15 and like, oh, this guy's going to go 15th. We're taking him. I think the value is about the right spot. Now, would Will Campbell go? He would have gone 7th or 8th last year. I think he goes above Fuanga. I mean, McShay disagreed. I saw Todd McShay think he was like tackle 5 from last year, behind, say, J.C. Latham and Talise Fuanga and Olu Fashanu. I don't agree. I think he's closer to Alt. I think he's better than those guys, but not Joe Alt and not one of the best tackle prospects. So I think it's all fine for them. But yeah, there's some concerns in pass protection, particularly against longer edges, against Landon Jaxson or Kyle Kennard. Nick Scorton got him. Jared Verse got him. All the drafted prospects over the last couple of years have about 8 to 10 reps against Will Campbell where you're like, uh-oh, watch out. It's not a lot, but there's enough. And that's when we're talking enough, like Armand Membou gave up like 7 pressures last year, right? Most top tackles don't have that many losses. Campbell's got some of those.
Yeah, he does. It is. So, he gave up 18 pressures last season, 17 the year before that. Like, these are higher numbers than you normally see. Now, he played a lot, right? Like, he's battle tested, 2,500 career snaps, 1,600 career pass blocking snaps. Like, that's a lot of opportunities for guys to beat him and a lot more than some of the other tackles you would be talking about. When you look at it on a rate basis, it is a tick below those guys. And I would have ranked him below Fashanu, for example, last year. Like, I do think he is a tick down from those guys, but he is still a very good offensive tackle prospect. And in this draft, particularly where there isn't, that long list of blue chip players, like, you're very quickly into the guys that have something to be a little bit concerned about. I think you can say, look, the Patriots had that need. They had to do that. Is he the best tackle prospect in this draft? Like, would you take him or Membou or, whoever else? I think you can definitely make the argument that he's the best one in this class, at which point, yeah, it's a move they probably had to make.
The last thing we talked about Campbell on the live show, we've talked all the time about his arm and his, wingspan and the whole thing. Every other measurable's above what good tackles usually are, or better. 40 time, 10-yard dash time, all of his. The guy's a great athlete, nimble in space. Pretty good run blocker. He's a good player and fills obviously the massive left tackle need that the Patriots have at number 4. So at number 5, we talked Mason Graham goes to the Browns. They traded down. We already discussed that pick. Rewind a little bit if you're just tuning in. You want your Browns analysis. We lumped it in with the Jags. And then pick number 6, Las Vegas Raiders take Ashton Jeanty. Again, we saw this pick pretty common in mock drafts, and it came true here. Ashton Jeanty to the Raiders at 6. What were your thoughts here, Sam?
Yeah, I mean, you've got 2 aspects, I think. You've got the first one, which is the sort of general debate about running backs in the first round. How high do you take them? Should you take them? Are you in a position to take them? We said this before. I tend to see that like a flow chart, series of yes or no questions. First question, do you need the running back to create or fix a run game by himself? Or is it already in position and you just need the right guy to come in? I think you can convince yourself that the Raiders have the environment for a running back to succeed. The offensive line is, I think, solid, particularly the left side is good. Colton Miller's really good. Jackson Powers-Johnson at center should be really good this year. Dylan Parham's a good guard. The right side is a bit more of a concern with Alex Kappa, with DJ Glaze. Who knows? But I think you can talk yourself into that being a solid platform. You've got Geno Smith there now at quarterback. You've got some receiving weapons. I think you can say this run game should function. So I say yes, right? Yes, we can go on to the next thing. The next thing becomes opportunity cost. What are we leaving on the table to take the running back? Well, you're leaving edge rushers. You're leaving a top corner. You're leaving, the next receiver on the board, offensive lineman. You're leaving, there's some things, but you are out of the blue chip guys. I think we can agree on that, right? Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter. We've kind of run out of the blue chip players. So again, I think you can say he's special. It's probably worth taking him over the next guy that isn't a blue chip. And then the third thing is, how much are you going to end up paying him because you're drafting him so high in the first round? It's close. What did you say? He was going to be the 13th best paid running back at that spot?
Yeah, my handy chart here. He's a 13th highest paid running back over the course of his contract here, just about 61st percentile. And again, just for perspective, if you draft an edge rusher at that pick, they become the 40th highest paid edge. If you draft a corner, they become the 34th highest paid corner. If you draft a guard, 13th highest paid guard. So it's similar to paying a guard. So when we talk about the positional value aspect, to me, value is 2 streets. One is how much does this player help you directly win football games? The second one is how much are you going to pay him relative to the market? Now, usually the NFL is really good at valuing those things properly, right? They pay the guys that we think lead to winning football games more: tackles, pass rushers, receivers. So it usually coincides, but that's just when you talk value, that's what you're getting to. Does this guy help you win football games, and are you paying him higher than the market? And that's the risk with taking a running back high.
So I think all three of those questions that I would want to answer correctly before I drafted the running back there are close, but I think you can talk yourself into the answer being yes for all of them, right? So then you get into the idea of, okay, if you've just about gone on the yes side of the flow chart 3 times, go directly to collect $200, collect Ashton Jeanty. What are you getting in Ashton Jeanty? That's where the good news starts, because that dude is just awesome. Like, he's one of my favorite players in the draft. He's one of the best prospects in years. He's got that ability. I mean, he said it in his Players Tribune article. It's tackle football. Take the guy they can't tackle. He broke 157 tackles in a single season. That is off the charts insane. He's 5'8", over 200 pounds. His low center of gravity. He's powerful. He's a great receiver as well. Like, he is just a special running back talent. I tweeted this out. Like, people were like, "Oh, throw on the Penn State tape and see what happens when it." Like, he was amazing against Penn State. It's just that the team was so overmatched, they were able to relatively bottle him up. But he was making miracles happen.
Yeah, if he had, Geno Smith and Jacoby Myers to, throw against the loaded box, it would work. The Penn State tape, he had 10 missed tackles forced, or 15 forced missed tackles, whatever it was. It was insane.
15,
so yeah,
I think.
I mean, all that, the Penn State game tells you this is why you can't rely too much on running backs generally,
right? Because
you can load the box and take them out of games, production wise. He's a fantastic player, great prospect. To me, he's up there with Bijan Robinson, Saquon Barkley, best running back prospects of the last 10 years. But yeah, we'll see. The Raiders' run game was atrocious last year. It got better down the stretch. It was historically bad through 6-8 weeks, whatever it was, 10 weeks. So yeah, it should help, should be better. Curious to know what the could still use more receiver help, some defensive help, but they go with the last blue chip player in this draft, in my opinion, in Ashton Jeanty.
The only concern is the workload that he received. And in particular last year, rather than he's carried the ball a lot in college, but last year in particular, 375 carries, was it? I mean, that's one of those numbers that's like above the line that starts to terrify people in terms of the impact that has on running backs going forward. Now, it's probably different in college where you're young. It's probably also different when you're Jeanty and you're not taking a full shot at the end of every one of those carries, but that's at least a number that would make me be aware of it. You know what I mean?
All right. Pick number 7, New York Jets on the clock. They go Armand Membou, the right tackle out of Missouri. Again, another common pick in mock drafts. There were some rumors that the Jets really liked a defensive player. That was false, apparently. They go Membou, and like the Saints a couple picks later, this is going to be back-to-back years picking offensive tackles. Last year they went Olu Fashanu, left tackle out of Penn State. He'll be the full-time starting left tackle now. Membou at right tackle. And the first pick for Darren Muji, the GM, Aaron Glenn, the new head coach. Thought it was a good, unsexy, get your offensive lineman first pick. And as everybody also, reminded us, Dan Campbell, Brad Holmes, their first pick with the Lions. Right tackle, Penei Sewell. I don't think Membou's as good as Penei Sewell. That was a great draft that Sewell was going 7. But Membou's a nice pick for the Jets.
Yeah, I really like Membou. His tape was really impressive to me. He's got a sort of weird body type, which is why I think he was getting that guard conversation as well. He's really wide and sort of squat and looks like a guard, but actually his arms are insanely long and he's sort of got tackle measurables, but just looks like in a guard frame almost. But you turn on some of his tape, like he destroyed Shemar Stewart in terms of pass protection, who's this super athlete and, special player and talent like off the charts, etc. I mean, he dominated him and he did that a bunch of times. So I love that duo now of Fashanu on the left side, that sort of technician, the athletic, nimble pass blocking left tackle, and then Membou, who's got pass blocking chops and power and is more of a kind of all around, prototypical right tackle. I think that offensive line could be pretty good now this season. with the quarterback situation they have. Yeah, it's maybe not the sexiest pick in the world, but I like it. I think it's a good one.
Yeah, and I know the Jets were linked to the tight end or Tyler Warren a bunch in mock drafts, and I'm going to tell you why, the positives around Tyler Warren and his fit with the Colts, and Colston Loveland and his fit with the Bears. With the Jets in particular, though, with needs on both lines of scrimmage, needs at wide receiver 2 next to Garrett Wilson, quarterback long-term, still kind of a need for the Jets, right? With all those needs, like, just take the tackle and move on. I'm glad that they did it. I think it was a smart move. And as what did I say? One of our friends said, a mature move by the Jets organization, we'll say. So back-to-back years at tackle for the Jets, and I think it's a multi-year rebuild for the Jets, and I think this is a good way to keep it moving.
Yeah.
You have something else?
I like it.
All right, Panthers up on the clock at pick 8. Tetairoa McMillan, wide receiver from Arizona. So we kept thinking they need pass rush. They need pass rush. They tried to do it in free agency. I don't think they added enough in free agency. They need pass rushers, and they go wide receiver Tetairoa McMillan, which, again, I think is a good pick. I'm fine with him in the top 10, even if he's a tick below last year's top wide receiver prospects. Good all around at everything. Size, route running, after the catch, hands, contested catches. I think he does everything extremely well. He's good at a lot of different things. He's the pick for the Panthers at 8.
Yeah, I mean, he feels like a player that belongs closer to 20 than 10 to me, but that kind of feels like a lot of the first round, and somebody's got to go in the top 10. So, like, I actually like the fit of Tetairoa McMillan within the Panthers offense in particular. Like, I think you look at what they have, and it's a muddy picture because you've got Xavier Legette, their first round receiver from a year ago, didn't look good as a rookie. Don't know what he's going to be. You got aging Adam Thielen, who's still there playing well in the slot. You got Jalen Coker, who surprised people as a find from nowhere, but is not going to be your sort of number one alpha. Tetairoa McMillan comes in, I think, can complement all of that. And even like, he doesn't necessarily need to be this true number one X receiver. And some people talk about him in that way. I don't know that that's what he is. He's an interesting player because 6'4", 215 pounds ish. I don't know that he's amazing winning those one-on-one plays on the outside against aggressive coverage. I've seen some rough plays where he's just dominated in those situations. But even if Legette doesn't become like a well-rounded elite number one, I think that's the stuff that he can do. Like, even if you just say, look, dude, you're bigger, faster, and stronger than the corner trying to cover you. Just run a 9 route, win on the outside, go cook them downfield. Even if that's all you can do, that's the missing skill set. You do that. Tet can do everything else. Jalen Coker can do the other stuff. Adam Thielen can be a complementary force. So I think he's got route running chops that he doesn't get enough credit for. I think he's better after the catch than people give him credit for. And I think he can play inside in the slot. I think about 20% of his snaps came inside. So I think you can move him around, and that suddenly becomes a very well-balanced receiving core. And if Legette takes a big step forward and becomes, a better player than people are giving him credit for, suddenly that receiving core looks awesome.
Yeah, I think Legette has, some big playability. I don't think he's going to be a dependable 100-catch type of guy. I think Tetairoa McMillan can be a dependable 100-catch type of uber possession receiver. Bryce Young's breakout last year coincided with throwing to David Moore, undrafted rookie Jalen Coker, and Adam Thielen, right? And old man Thielen. That's impressive for Bryce Young. We talked him up so much on the show here during the second half of the season. Now you get him another weapon in McMillan. Curious to know what the Panthers do with their next couple picks. I still think the defense needs a lot of help in the front 7. Yeah. But this was a good look. Every edge we talked about has concerns, and they didn't force it just because of the need. They went with, I think they went in their head, best player available. And I think for me, they did best player available. They did it the right way. What?
The chat's calling out the graphics. It's almost 1 a.m., so we're allowed to spell Tetairoa correctly, but Panthers incorrectly. Like, it's late for everybody,
The Panthers.
Just roll with the punches.
Come on. I mean, first-time producer Will behind the scenes here. When we told him our draft day plan, we're like, listen, we're going to go live for 4.5 hours, and then we're going to recap the things we just talked about in a condensed 2-hour setting. Like, we're on pace for 3 hours, right? So we're like doubling what we just did here draft night. And he's so mad He's like ready to quit. He's fake. He's not spelling. Can't even spell here.
This one wasn't even Will. This was Ben, who then bailed to do a different show.
It's because Ben, he's got his head in the spotlight, right? He's, I got to go help Ari now. Let me just screw these guys over. It's Ben's fault. Panthers. It's fine. By the way, we're joking. We're having fun with our friends here. In case anybody's getting mad at us. They're doing a great job. They're doing a great job for us.
Yeah. So the other in the mock drafts, we were always going kind of defensive end pass rusher for the Panthers, but we kept saying all the way along, right? Each one of those edge rushers has got something to be scared about, and you kind of pick the thing that you're least scared about. Well, what if they looked at it and went, well, we're scared of all of it, so we're not touching any of them. We're going to take the wide receiver instead.
It's good sound process for Dan Morgan, Dr. Eric Eager, the whole crew. Good process by the Panthers. That was 8. Number 9, staying in the NFC South, New Orleans Saints take Kelvin Banks. This is where a lot of the smoke was around, hey, we're not taking a quarterback. We're not taking Shedeur Sanders. We'll think about a quarterback in the second round. We're going big boy up front, and they did. Kelvin Banks, third tackle off the board here for most of the process. Before Membou really had a breakout 2024 season, great combine. Before that, Kelvin Banks was OT2. He was the second best tackle behind Will Campbell in most rankings. Our friend Mike Renner had him as tackle 1. Still some people that say he's a guard. I think he's going to be a tackle. And like I said about the Jets, the Saints now drafted Talise Fawanga as a tackle last year, Kelvin Banks as a tackle this year with their last 2 first-round picks.
Yeah, and I think the Saints just had a lot of needs. They could have gone in a variety of different ways. They needed edge rushers. They needed edge rusher. They needed defensive interior in particular. But they also need offensive line. I mean, they didn't pick up Trevor Penning's 5th-year option. The offensive line, I think, definitely needs to be repaired in place or in readiness for a new quarterback, whoever that's going to be, whether it's this year or in the future. So I think Banks makes some sense. Now, we don't know yet. I haven't seen whether they've announced this or whether they've told people whether Banks is going to play right tackle and Fawanga stays at the left side, or whether they're going to keep Banks on the left side where he played in college and move Fawanga back to where he played in college. But either way, I think that makes sense as a pair of bookends. Banks's best trait to me is that guy in space is awesome. Like if you get him out in space on outside zone runs, on screen plays, like he's able to locate and destroy much smaller defensive backs, linebackers, and just open up massive plays for running backs or for receivers. I love that aspect of him, and the rest of his plays good as well.
One other piece that's interesting to maybe only me, J.C. Latham, college right tackle, moved to left tackle in the NFL, and now he's going to go back to the right. I think Fawanga, they might do the same. I mean, he was a college right tackle, put him back to the right side and let Banks play left. So it's either like, I keep saying it doesn't matter, just let guys move, they'll figure it out. Is this the NFL saying, it's some failed experiments, it's better to just keep guys on their more natural side? We'll see what happens, but you're right. I mean, Penning, they're not picking up his 5th-year option. I think he'll be on the trading block now if there is a desperate team that would like the developmental project in Penning, who's a good run blocker, not as good as a pass protector, and probably doesn't have a spot unless he's going to play guard for a year for the Saints, because I think or maybe Banks plays guard for this year and then plays tackle, because they could have Fawanga and Penning for this year. So we'll see what happens, but mature move by the Saints, we'll say, for them as well. Get the big boys up front. Number 10 pick. This was the first, I think, non-trade curveball here. The Bears go Colston Loveland, the tight end out of Michigan, and he's the first tight end off the board, not the very hyped up Tyler Warren, who many expected to go ahead of him.
Yeah, and this will, I think, feel like a reach in some places, but I don't think it really was. Number one, there were quite a lot of people. It was becoming a more and more popular thing to have Colston Loveland, ranked essentially ahead of Tyler Warren, or certainly ranked them as like 1 and 1A. Even if you look at the consensus board, he got as high as 15, Colston Loveland. Yeah. Warren got up to 9, but Loveland is right behind him with 15. And I think specifically for the Bears, the fact that Colston Loveland is this huge target, it sort of was 6'5", 6'6", 250 pounds, but he moves like a wide receiver. He's got like receiving skills that look like a wide receiver. And pairing him with Caleb Williams in an offense that's had an offensive line overhauled. They've got multiple picks to come back and get a running back later on. Jeanty was off the board. I like that as a pick. And I think specifically for the Bears, I get why you might go Loveland over Tyler Warren and think that he brings, maybe more juice as a true receiving threat, as opposed to a kind of slightly more well-rounded all-around tight end.
Yeah, I like Loveland as a receiver, maybe a better pure receiver than Tyler Warren. I thought Warren was a better all-around prospect. Or tight end. I'm not everyone's in an agreement with me. Remember last year that we heard all these rumblings that there's a lot of teams who like Malik Neighbors more than Marvin Harrison Jr. You got similar vibes where there's a lot of teams who have Colston Loveland over Tyler Warren. Obviously, the Bears are one of those teams. I don't know how many others there were. But yeah, he's a natural pass catcher. Love the way so many of the tight ends in this class, I didn't love their ball skills or how they caught the ball off their frame or adjusted to it. I think Loveland does all of that really, really well. Natural receiver, as you said. The other little minor thing that he does well that works well with Caleb Williams is the scramble drill adjustments and feel for the passing game. I think he does that extremely well. So they also have Cole Kmet there already, re-signed him. We know that there's room for two tight ends in today's NFL. You got Ben Johnson there, and I think Ben Johnson, all he's ever done over the last few years with the Lions is work with his personnel. He doesn't have a system. He's got a whole bunch of trick plays, but they run gap scheme, they run zone in the run game, they attack down the field, they do it all. So I think they'll find a way to maximize Loveland, Kmet, DJ Moore, and last year's first round pick Roma Dunze on the outside.
Yeah, and they've used a lot of two tight ends as well in Detroit before with Sam Laporta coming in. So I think that makes sense. People were connected, like even though they have Cole Kmet and they've re-signed him, even for a while, people have been saying, look, these two guys are enough of an upgrade over Cole Kmet. It's worth doing anyway. Plus, as you said, you can accommodate two tight end formations, particularly with Ben Johnson coming in. I don't think it's even a luxury pick. It's just it's like drafting a wide receiver when you already have one or two, right? It's not a weakness. There's a way of not just accommodating them, but it makes you more powerful. It's a force multiplier.
If he's going to take a lot of the slot snaps from Keenan Allen as a possession slot, Loveland can do that even here in year one. All right, we're going to get to pick 11 in a minute, but first, a quick word from our sponsors. Hey guys, got to tell you about our friends over at ZBiotics. Let me tell you, if there's a surefire way to wake up feeling fresh after drinks with friends, it's with pre-alcohol. ZBiotics pre-alcohol probiotic drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's a buildup of this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for rough days after drinking. So pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. So just remember to make pre-alcohol your first drink of the night, drink responsibly, and you'll feel your best tomorrow. We tried this over at the Scouting Combine, had some friends in town, gave them their pre-alcohol, and they were feeling great the entire week. So spring is here, which means more opportunities to celebrate warmer weather before drinks on the patio, that tropical vacation, or your best friend's wedding. Don't forget your ZBiotics pre-alcohol. Drink one before drinking. Wake up feeling great the next day. So go to zbiotics.com/checkthemic to learn more. You get 15% off your first order when you use Check the Mic at checkout. ZBiotics is backed by 100% money-back guarantee. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/checkthemic and use code checkthemic at checkout for 15% off. All right, Sam, we're about a third of the way through reviewing round one after 4.5 hours going live. We got this. Mykel Williams is the next pick 11 to the San Francisco 49ers. Massive need on the defensive line. Now, he's the second edge off the board, which was interesting to me because we didn't know if it would be Mike Green, James Pearce, Jalen Walker was more commonly the next edge off the board on the consensus. But Mykel Williams, probably the most old school throwback looking edge rusher, and that's the guy that the Niners go with, a base end type to complement Nick Bosa on the other side.
Yeah, so Mykel Williams felt like the player of this edge rusher group that was likely to get drafted pretty high because, number one, I think his red flag, yellow flag, if we've called that before, is a little bit less concerning. It's just like mild lack of production, but it's not like massive red flag concerning. And then the other thing is he's the type of player the NFL falls in love with, right? He's big, he's long, he's powerful. Like those are physical traits that the league gravitates towards. But, you do have to look at him and say, he's not a freakish athlete. Like we're not talking about a Trayvon Walker or a Donnell Hunter or one of these super athletes. Like he's a solid athlete. It's more that he's big than he is a freaky athlete. And, he was relatively unproductive, not quite Shemar Stewart lack of production, but there was a pretty significant lack of production for Mykel Williams as well. In his defense, like Trayvon Walker, he had some of that where he was lined up inside as a sort of 3-4 end where those guys don't have a true, like, real shot of rushing the passer at the outside, the most beneficial pass rushes you can get. So I think there probably is some untapped potential there. He battled through an injury last season as well, where, that might have hampered how much of an impact he could make. And I like the idea that now he gets to go and play opposite Nick Bosa. And Nick Bosa is a pressure machine. And he's going to have a ton of opportunities to get cleanup plays and sacks and pressures. And he's pretty good at that. Like he's able to mirror a quarterback and, go after that guy and not be shaken loose. So it's a little bit of a reach relative to where I would have been comfortable taking him, but I get it. Like I understand you look at some of these guys that are sliding and the reasons they slid, and I understand why you would go with Mykel Williams here.
6'5", 267, 34+ inch arms, and that's his style, right? I mean, it's the long arm. He wins with power, wins with length. He's a length winner, not a burst winner when it comes to rushing the passer. I keep calling him a high floor player because I think at worst you're getting a good run defender. That's not exciting at pick 11 with that description, but I still think there's some pass rush ability in there. But again, different style player than a Nick Bosa. Compliment to him. At worst, he's gonna be a good run defender, and he's still young. He's just 20 years old. He'll be 21 in June. So young player with that theoretical upside. But I have to, I got to be consistent with all this. I think drafting edge rushers, I keep saying the two boxes: athleticism and production. To me, production is disruption in the run game. Disruption is a pass rusher. He's got it run game, doesn't have it pass rush wise historically, and doesn't really have the great athleticism, but he's got a big, long Greg Rousseau type of body that works at the NFL level. So to me, you can explain away the boxes that he doesn't tick a little bit better, played through injury, and only has a little over 1,100 snaps in his career. So that's it. That's Mykel Williams. And the other point I want to bring up, Nate Tice had him as, early number one player on the board. Same thing we said about James Pearce. I don't know if that means anything other than you're talking about a guy that should go around the top 10, or at least has all the physical tools, expectations to go around the top 10. He didn't really live up to him completely at Georgia, but you're still, as a 20-year-old, trying to lean into that and hope he grows into it.
Yeah, the age is huge. You're going to potentially be able to develop him more, but you do have to look, at least say, I mean, okay, he only had 26 pressures last year. We give him a break for that because he's battling through injury, but he only had 26 the year before that as well. He's never had more than 33 in a season. He's never had a PFF pass rushing grade above 75 in a season. I mean, this is not good production. You know what I mean? And that's, it's like the old Moneyball thing, right? If he's such a good hitter, why doesn't he hit good? And that's kind of like, that's why I feel about both those guys, right? Mykel Williams and Shemar Stewart. If these guys are such great edge rushers, why don't they rush off the edge good?
Yeah, I want to be fair to him and Shemar. Like, we have to put him into a similar bucket, right? You're expecting better pass rush production at the NFL level than you got in college.
Yeah.
That doesn't usually work. That's the thing. So that's Mykel Williams to the Niners at 11. Do you have anything else on him?
No, I think you're right. Like that's the thing. For him to justify this draft pick, he has to be a better pass rusher in the NFL than he was in college. And there are reasons to think he can be that, right? You're presumably going to give him a more beneficial alignment / responsibility more often. Nick Bosa is going to help. The fact that he's 20 years old will help with the development. Like, there's reasons to think that he can be a better player in the NFL than he was in college.
All right, man. Number 12, Dallas goes Tyler Booker, the guard out of Alabama. Another bit of a surprise here. Now we saw the guards go a little bit higher. Booker to the Cowboys. We went through this in depth on the live show, so let's do the condensed version. I think he's a good football player, old school Bama, Mauler type, historically bad workout that when you put workout comps next to him, they're all bad. and the workouts do tend to matter when you're projecting guards, and that's the risk, I think, when you're looking at Tyler Booker. I don't think he has the foot. I think he's a good pass blocker who doesn't have the foot speed to maybe adjust to quicker rushers, twists and stunts, and some of the stuff you have to see at the NFL level. So that's the risk, I think, that you're associating here with pick 12.
Yeah, so we went through a lot of picks at the top of the draft where I liked them, I liked the fit, I liked the player, all the things were good. And then the last couple, I don't feel as good about because I think there are missing elements to their profile. And when you're talking about drafting a guy at the top half of the first round, you kind of want to see all of those boxes ticked. And for Tyler Booker, they're just not. Now the tape is good, and the tape is good at Alabama against SEC competition, right? So you have to at least acknowledge everyone that went and watched him play football said the guy can play. And, you listen to Walt in the chat, right? That's the most important thing. Tape's the only thing that matters. But the measurable stuff matters as well. The workout stuff does matter. There's a reason we track this. And it's because when you look back at large sets of data, there aren't that many guys that are historically bad, the workouts, who work out well, right? So if you're Dallas and you're trying to replace a Hall of Fame offensive guard in Zach Martin with a guy who has a terrible workout profile, tough to feel great about it. I mean, I get why they've done it, and this is why Dallas drafts sometimes don't feel great, because they sort of box themselves into these situations. But, he's a good football player who's going to have to become an exception when it comes to some, things like the physical workouts, but maybe he will.
I pulled out some workout comps. You've got Bobby Evans. You have Jonah Jackson. He's got paid. Royce Newman, Cade Mays. It's not great. It's not a great list. He reminds me of Osiris Torrance, second-round pick for the Bills, who's been a starter. He's been an okay starter for the Bills over the last couple of years. Most importantly, the Cowboys now have 3 guys named Tyler on their offensive line.
Most important.
With Tyler Guyton, Tyler Smith, and now Tyler Booker. The other interesting aspect to this, I thought Tyler Guyton, last year's first-round pick, was one of the riskiest first-round picks, given his profile. Boomer bust type of prospect. I think Booker might have some of that in him as well. And this is coming off of a 5-year stretch or so where Dallas was as good of a drafting team as anyone. So we'll see. They might be right. And they have a great history the last 10-plus years of drafting and developing offensive linemen. Really, really good history. The other aspect, really quick, Tyron Smith, gone and retired before last year. Zach Martin, retired. They're drafting their replacements over the last 2 years, Tyler Guyton and Tyler Booker. No pressure, young men. No pressure.
Right. And again, I just want to reemphasize, in 2 of his 3 years, he had PFF pass blocking grades of 89 and 86.5 in the SEC. The tape is generally good, but most players with his workout profile do not become good high-end NFL starting guards. Then that's the worry if you're taking him at 12 overall.
What were the run blocking grades?
Not as good, anywhere near as good. 59.6, 71.2, and 63.9.
I'm saying that's part of the projection. He's got this reputation as a mauling guard. He lost a lot of blocks at the college level. You usually see a dominant run blocking profile for first-round guards. He's not anything close to that. It doesn't fit what you think he is as a player. He's a better pass protector.
And sometimes that's a counterintuitive thing where you think bad athlete is not a problem for run blocking because it's just a size and strength thing, but you need to be mobile to run block. Yeah. You need to be able to explode across a gap. You need to be able to make up distance across defensive linemen that are shaded in the wrong place. That's actually sometimes where bad athletes get exposed a lot more. Think DeJuan Jones, right? Monster. You think that guy's 1,000,000 pounds. He's going to be a road grading offensive tackle, but actually he's a better pass blocker than he is a run blocker because he doesn't move that great.
All right, pick 13, the third Michigan player off the board. It's Kenneth Grant, defensive tackle. You were loving this, right? You mocked him to the Saints at 9 at one point. People were laughing at you right off the show. But look at this. The Dolphins, big needs at corner, defensive tackle. You could argue offensive line. We certainly did quite a bit. They go defensive tackle here in Kenneth Grant.
Just when I thought I was out in this first round draft, they pulled me right back in with Kenneth Grant. Dude, I love this guy. And I don't know why. It's weird. I have this irrational love for Kenneth Grant because I don't normally gravitate to that type of player. And in a nutshell, right, he's 6'3", 340 pounds. but he's sort of he flashes. His flashes are insane. Like his high-end plays are utterly ridiculous. He moves like a cat for a 340-pound dude. And you watch some of his splash plays and they're like, this is absolutely ridiculous. But he doesn't do it as consistently as, a player with that kind of talent should be doing it, right? It's a little bit frustrating sometimes. And normally those guys annoy me and I don't bank on the flashes, and I sort of assume that they're more flash than substance. But for some reason, I'm banking on Kenneth Grant being able to become more in the NFL than he was in college. He was on, Bruce Feldman's freak list, all these kinds of things. He reminded me of another former Michigan defensive tackle, Alan Branch, who back in 2013 or something. No, I don't know how early he was drafted, even before that, right?
Yeah, earlier.
But he was another like 340-pound nose tackle who, because he was 340 pounds, they're like, you play nose tackle. You're a two-gapping, run-stuffing, hold the point nose tackle. But actually, he was a three-tech trapped in a nose tackle's body, right? And I felt like he had a solid NFL career, a few different teams, but they all tried to make him just a nose tackle, like a run-stuffing nose tackle. I think if he came into the league today and you got a coach that recognized what he was, and you just said, just get into the backfield, penetrate, cause destruction, I think he would be a much better player today than he was during his actual career. And I think Kenneth Grant can be that guy. Like, he has so many wins with quickness, with a swim move against offensive linemen, with just a one instant club swim and just into the backfield and causing havoc. Don't ask him to hold a point against the run. Don't ask him to two gap. Just say, shoot a gap, beat a man one-on-one, get into the backfield, and just wreck the play.
At 331 pounds, right? That's what he weighed in at the combine. Remember last year, there was like two of these guys that were 330 plus who were worth going within the first 3 or 4 rounds. There's a lot more of those types of players in this draft. So Grant goes pretty high. That's also one of the stories of the draft. 5 defensive tackles go in the first round. That's a huge number. I think it has to be the most since 2019. The 19 class was Dexter Lawrence, Christian Wilkins, Jeffrey Simmons, Ed Oliver, and Quinn Williams, I think, in that one. All 5 of the top 10 to 12 best defensive tackles in the league, right? They're all among the best. So it's a run here. And Grant's the second guy off the board, second Michigan defensive tackle. And I'm with you, man. His best plays are quickness. He's got the strength too, but he's not your old school classic hold the point type of nose tackle. You got to let him get after it, and I think he can make some really good plays in the pass game too. He can get after the quarterback, and that'll be the difference in all the top defensive tackles. These guys can play 3 downs and be effective.
And like Branch, I think he could just do it if you said, I want you to hold a point, I want you to be a nose tackle, run stuffer. I think he could do that, but I think it would be a waste of him. And if you actually just let him cook and get into the backfield, and I feel like drafting him this high suggests they might feel that. Like, it would be a waste of this kind of draft capital to me to take him this high and say, just hold the point against the run. Unleash him. Turn him loose. Let him just get into the backfield and wreck shop.
You need to stop mentioning Alan Branch for the number 13 overall pick. You're going to make Dolphins fans sad now. Branch was drafted in 2007, the 33rd pick overall, never had a PFF grade above 70. He had 1 PFF grade above 70 in the first 8 years of his career. So I understand what you're saying. You're just going to make people sad because they're going to think, I don't remember Alan Branch being that good. But I know what you're saying.
A solid player.
He was all right. I think Grant should have a better career than Branch, right? I think you agree as well.
But anyway, the point is, Branch should have been better, is the point I'm making all along. Like, he was a first-round draft pick who got miscast because he was also 340 plus pounds, and so his career wasn't as good as it should have been.
All right, pick 14. This was one of the more common picks in the mock drafts leading up. Tyler Warren, tight end, to the Colts, filling that massive need. And look, I like the fit for the Colts and what they're building offensively, whether it is Anthony Richardson or Daniel Jones at the quarterback position. If it is Richardson in particular, though, I think Warren's run blocking, his ability to move around the formation, the way Penn State leaned into him as the playmaker, put him in the backfield, had him taking direct snaps. Now you have that type of versatility that Warren brings to the table, 3 legitimate receivers, Anthony Richardson's run pass threat, and Jonathan Taylor. This is a make it tough to defend type of pick here for the Colts.
Yeah, I mean, perfect match of player and need. They had a desperate need at tight end. Colston Loveland already gone. Even if he was available, they might have preferred Tyler Warren anyway. He's a really good player. I mean, he's a well-rounded tight end. He's a great receiver. He's a good blocker. I think he stood out as by far the best player in that Penn State offense. Every time you saw him, I mean, they fed him. The offense went through him this year. It's the biggest weakness on this Colts team, other than the quarterback situation. There's nothing you can do about that now. The rest of that roster is in pretty good shape. I think Tyler Warren can come in there, and immediately that's a really good group of skill position players. And, you keep mentioning, I mean, think what that can do for Anthony Richardson. If Daniel Jones wins that job, this is the best situation around Daniel Jones he's had in his NFL career.
Yes, absolutely. In a dome, too. Dome. Right? You've got a deep threat, Alex Pearce.
With, by the way, a really good offensive-minded coach.
Yeah, it is. Shane Steichen is head coach. Deep threat, Alex Pearce. Possession, Michael Pittman. Uber slot, Josh Downs. Tyler Warren at tight end. Jonathan Taylor run game. Good offensive line. Still have to probably grab another player or two to round it out. But you're right. Whether it's Daniel Jones or Anthony Richardson, I love the physicality of Tyler Warren, contested catch ability. I don't think it's as natural of a receiver as Colston Loveland, but a better all-around old school throwback-ish type of tight end. That's Tyler Warren to me. And I think he helps. I think he helps the Colts. Good?
Yep.
Now we're flying. We're cooking. What happened next?
Jalon Walker.
The Falcons. We have 2 Falcons picks to talk about.
Yes.
Okay? Because they came back into the first round. And this is what I love about Terry Fontenot. We don't know. We don't know what he's going to do. The Falcons had 5 picks coming into today. They're gonna trade down. They're gonna want to recoup some picks. No, we're giving up. We're mortgaging the house and our Airbnb. Doesn't matter. We're mortgaging all of it. We want 2 edge rushers. It's better than having one of the top 5 edge rushers in this class. 2 of them.
2 of them
this year, and that's what they did. They take Jalon Walker at 15, and then there was a clip. I wasn't able to watch much of the broadcast. There was a clip where it looks like, I don't know if they're talking to Arthur Blank, but they're all looking at a paper and they're nodding and they're pointing, and I think they were mapping out the trade. They're like, look, Jalon Walker at 15. We weren't expecting him to be here. But the other guy we might have wanted at 15, if he falls, we're going to come back and get him. We're going to get both of them. We're going to get both. So they get Jalon Walker at 15 and James Pearce Jr. at 26, trading back up into the first round, giving up next year's first rounder to get James Pearce Jr., 2 pass rushers for the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the biggest splashes of the draft. I mean, this is a wild sequence of moves. Jalon Walker is the 8th overall player on the consensus board, and James Pearce Jr. ended up sliding all the way down to 32 because of the because of the red flag for him is attitude and work ethic, right? There's a general sense that he doesn't put 100% effort into what he's doing in the building, on the field. Generally, it's a does he want it enough thing, right? And that's going to terrify some teams because what they're looking for is the guys that will run through a brick wall for this opportunity, right? And he might not do that. So that's why he was sliding. The Jalon Walker thing is interesting because a lot of, he was the consensus top 10 player. We were expecting him to go to Carolina, somewhere else. And I think you're right. There is a very real chance that they simply did not imagine a scenario where Jalon Walker was available at pick 15. And actually, whereas we were assuming the teams that needed edge rushers would effectively just select, the edge rusher that had a red flag that they didn't really care about, and it would kind of work out. What seemed to happen is actually all of them just slid further down because everybody was sort of scared of the same things. And eventually Jalon Walker slides as far as Atlanta. They grab him. And the trade up to get James Pearce only makes sense to me if you didn't think you were going to get Walker in the first place, because otherwise you would have just taken James Pearce with 15. It only kind of makes sense if Walker's too good to turn down at this pick, but we also want James Pearce at this pick. We think he's worth this. So we're willing to cash in next year's first round pick the way, the Texans did for Will Anderson, the way the Rams did with Braden Fisk, and, basically just cheat, cash in next year's picks now and take the kind of added premium that involves. But in order to do that, you're basically saying he's worth a top 10 pick this year as well. And the only reason you wouldn't therefore take him then is if you just had no scenario that Jalon Walker would be available. So, I mean, dude, those are two ballers on the field. Now, the attitude thing for James Pearce is a real concern. It's a real thing. Like, there's a reason he was sliding. But in terms of on the field talent, the Falcons just added two of the best 4 pass rushers in this draft.
And fascinating differences in the two players, right? Jalon Walker was the guy. I remember Chris Sims was on the show just a couple days ago saying, everybody tells me about his character first. I hate when they tell me about his character first. I want to know about the football player. Well, Jalon Walker is one of those character guys. Well, Pearce was the opposite, where it's like, man, if Pearce had Jalon Walker's character, he goes top 5. And if Walker had James Pearce's production, he goes top 5. That's just the reality of this. So you've got productive player with likes to play video games too much, with Jalon Walker, shown flashes, played 2 positions, theoretical upside. You got both. A great case study next to each other. So the Falcons doubling down on 2 pass rushers, James Pearce and Jalon Walker, to go with. Last year, they didn't go pass rusher high. They went Michael Penix Jr. instead, and then picked up 3 defensive linemen later. Ruka Rororo on the interior, Brandon Dorless, Braylon Trice later. Both of those guys hurt as rookies. So they are throwing a lot at this position. Also signed Leonard Floyd this offseason. They had Arnold Ebiketie there. So they were loading up saying, we will rush the passer better than we have in the past. Didn't realize until I saw this later. I was mentioning Raheem Morris's defense that tends to drop their edges into coverage. Jeff Ulbrich comes in as the new defensive coordinator. Not sure they're going to do that as often, but I'm interested to know, do they actually see Jalon Walker as more of a linebacker? I don't know if anybody's heard their press conference yet. They usually do those while we're alive, so we'll catch up on it later. I do wonder if they see him as more of a hybrid player and Pearce as a true edge, and if they will lean into that versatility. So that'll be interesting as well. But yeah, aggressive move by the Falcons, stealing the show, I think, as far as drama goes for the second straight year.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about each player a little bit. Let's start with James Pearce, just because he's the guy they kind of traded back up for, and therefore are valuing as like a top. They're valuing him where his talent effectively says he should be. And as much as, so leave the attitude, effort stuff to one side for a minute, just focus on the field. A year ago, when we came out of the draft and we were saying, what's the way too early mock draft for next year look like? Who are we talking about? We're talking about Mason Graham. We're talking about James Pearce Jr. James Pearce Jr. was a potential number 1 overall pick coming out of last year's draft, and wasn't like he was bad this past season, right? This guy had a 98th percentile pass rush win rate, a pass rush win rate of 23%. It's off the charts good. This is not a guy who, we've been talking about these unproductive edge rushers. This is somebody who's tall, long, twitchy as hell, has a 1.53 second get off, I think, a 4.5 type of 40. This is an explosive, fast, twitchy pass rusher who also got a ton of pressure, right? 50-something pressures last season, an absurd pass rush win rate. He has been exceptionally productive, even with the flaws in his game. And I think there are some flaws in his game, right? I don't know that his change of direction is phenomenal. I think he fails to kind of finish a lot of plays sometimes. And I think there are some concerns there, but that dude has been exceptionally productive despite those flaws. And I think that's definitely something to bet on.
Yeah, Pearce, his movement looks special. Love the way, he flows, looks like a wide receiver in body type a little bit and in movement. So I like a lot about Pearce's game. Jalon Walker, similar fascinating story because he literally split his time between linebacker and edge. He's got some incredible edge rush reps in there. He finishes plays extremely well. He can track down quarterbacks. He's just got a good feel for playing football. But he's got 350 career pass rushes in his, and that's it, and about 1,000 snaps of experience. So here's the thing: he might be on the Abdul Carter. He's not a freak athlete like Abdul Carter, or maybe as freaky as Abdul Carter, I don't think, as far as bend and everything, but he's close. And maybe he's on that trajectory. He's just a year behind of, hey, make him a full-time edge and we'll see that development. So that's what's intriguing about Walker, in addition to the character stuff. And, hey, if you do need to drop him into coverage, he's pretty good in space and he could spy quarterbacks. And he does a lot of just you love his tackling ability, like very simple football things that Jalon Walker does well.
I mean, I ranked him as the second best edge rusher in this draft. I think if you just make him a full-time edge rusher, he can be a phenomenal impact player. Like some people thought he gets talked about as being undersized. He's 6'2", 245. Abdul Carter is 6'3", 251. Like, you're telling me 6 pounds and an inch is the difference between undersized and blue chip prospect? Like, I'm not buying that, right? Jalon Walker can absolutely dominate as a full-time edge rusher. He's got insane bend. He can turn a really tight arc even inside against guards. I thought he was way more powerful than you expect for that size. Like, he packs a punch. He's compact. He can run through offensive linemen. Like you said, I love his fundamentals. The dude tackles well, puts a shoulder in, wraps his arms, brings guys to the ground. He's one of the best spies you're ever going to see. Like, his spying ability, his ability to clean up and track down a quarterback, like clean up a play, is absolutely insane. It's nuts. He's got a really good long arm. Like, he's got some moves in there as well. I think given his lack of experience and how good he already is as an edge rusher, I think he can be an absolute dominant force.
Just to recap the trade as well, with the Pearce trade, the Falcons moved up from 46 to 26. And to make that 20-spot move, they gave up next year's first rounder. And then they gave up a 7 and got back a 4. So forget the 7 and the 4 just for a minute. The crux of it is to move up 20 spots, next year's first rounder. Just like Jacksonville had to give up next year's first rounder and a 2 to move up the 3 spots at the top of the draft. It's an aggressive move for Atlanta, who I believe have 2 picks left in this draft, unless this is not updated properly. I think they have 3. I think they have 3 picks left, 101, and then 2 more. So that's it. So they're coming away with James Pearce, Jalon Walker, and 3 other picks as of now in this draft. But again, thought process wise, they're saying this is next year's first rounder. We're getting both of them right now. Let's get this pass rush better. It's one of the worst in the NFL by far. They had to change their entire scheme to get after the quarterback, blitz like crazy. So they're trusting these guys to get after the QB.
Yeah.
That's what's going on.
I think they should.
In Atlanta. Pick 16, Walter Nolen to the Arizona Cardinals. We're halfway through, Sam. We were going to do this in 2 hours. I thought we had it. Walter Nolen to the Cardinals. I like this. Rumors about Nolen going 11 to the Niners or going a little bit higher, but another D tackle, third D tackle off the board at this point. Really productive, interior penetrator, plays the run pretty well. Just a disruptor in Walter Nolen.
Yeah, I mean, the high end of his play is insane. Like, it looks like Jalen Carter. Fast, twitchy, dominant, explosive, like just a wrecking machine. He was the number 2 overall recruit in the country after Travis Hunter in the year where he made headlines by going to Jackson State and Deion Sanders. Walter Nolen was the second guy in the entire country. Didn't do a whole lot at Texas A&M, but then went to Ole Miss and was really, really good this past year. So, I don't think he was as good as Jalon Carter in terms of overall consistency, but the high end looks the same. And, that's teams are going to want that.
All the production metrics are pretty much there. Pass rush win rate, PFF pass rush grade, all the things that translate to the next level for good players. Didn't really get athletic testing for him, but he's lightning quick off the ball. We had some clips on the live show from the Senior Bowl showing him splitting double teams in the run game, beating up on guards as a pass rusher. I think he ticked a lot of boxes. Look at this. You guys are the best. Bull rush power, splitting doubles against the run game. If you're listening on audio, we're showing some clips. You got to get to YouTube as well. Inside rip move there for a pass rush. So yeah, he does a lot extremely well, and I think he's different from the other guys than Kenneth Grant and Mykel Williams. More like Mason Graham, closer to 300 pounds, disruptor who you could still trust against the run. Not so much to hold the point. None of the 300-pounders are really great at that, but just to be a gap shooting penetrator, I think he could do that really well.
And I think a really great result for the Arizona Cardinals, defense. Like we were talking about, they need defense in the first round. They just need impact playmakers still at all 3 levels. They've done a good job of adding talent to what was basically the worst unit, the worst side of the ball in the NFL. They've added a lot of talent to it, and they still needed to keep going. Now, all of a sudden, we talked about that defensive line reading like a preseason second string unit. All of a sudden, the second string is the second string. And now you've added Walter Nolen and Dalvin Tomlinson and Josh Sweat. And, you've added these bodies and relegated the second string players to the second string.
On the live show, I forgot to mention Darius Robinson, last year's first rounder as well. There's way more depth on this defensive line. So they're rolling 3 and 4 deep on the edge. They at least have a 2 deep that's far more formidable on the interior, certainly than they had last year. So yeah, I think Arizona moving in the right direction when they looked like one of the worst rosters in the NFL just 2 years ago, and brick by brick rebuilding that thing. Pick 17 was the Cincinnati Bengals. Shemar Stewart from Texas A&M, another one of the more fascinating players in the draft. Similar discussion as what we said with Mykel Williams, right? Not unproductive in college, not just the sack totals, pure pass rush win rate. Run defense was really good last year, but just you're banking on athletic upside here with Shemar Stewart. That's his game. That's how he plays, and that's what you're hoping for if you're the Bengals with him at 17 here.
Yeah, but unlike Mykel Williams, I think you can at least say, look, there are several elite physical traits for Shemar Stewart. Like I didn't see it happen. But somebody definitely put up a graphic and showed him versus Myles Garrett, right? And they're basically the same size, same weight.
33rd team did. Our own people.
A lot of the same traits, but Myles Garrett, I think, was the complete package in terms of the athletic profile. I don't know that Shemar Stewart has the same change of direction, particularly the bend. I don't see the same bend from Shemar Stewart, and he's studiously avoided ever showing that in the pre-draft process. No 3-cone, no short shuttle, no drills that even show you like running the arc. There's very little evidence of that on his tape. He tried it against Membou one time and just got crumpled to the turf. I don't see him running the arc the way, Abdul Carter does, the way Jalon Walker does, the way Ezuraku does, the way, some of these other pass rushers can around the edge. I don't know that he can do that, but he's got an absurd bull rush. Like that dude has straight line power for days. The get off, the explosion is madness. His side to side kind of Euro step is really good. He can actually cover ground laterally. And I do think, sacks are a terrible way of measuring pass rush, right? We know that. So the sack thing, 1.5 sacks or 2 sacks each year, don't pay that much attention to that. Focus on the pressures and the pressure rate. And that's still not good. Like it's not like that saves him. And actually, he's a really good pass rusher. It's just that the sacks aren't there. The pressure rate isn't great either, but it is better than his sack rate. He does have some problems. The change of direction stuff is concerning. He falls off more tackles than any pass rusher I can remember ever, which is a problem. But I find it very easy to kind of buy it, right? I think a lot of people do. And it's why, Dane Brugler has him as a top 5 player in the draft. I think Chris Sims had him as number 2 edge rusher or whatever. It's why these people keep coming back to that. You put on the tape and very quickly you're like, dude, that plays. Like that violence explosion, that's going to work.
So you're banking on, you're banking on the upside here. That's what it is. He ticks every box athletically. He's below every standard production-wise. Every standard of what historically productive edge rushers have done. So the Senior Bowl, he had some freakish plays, man. As I said on the live stream, there were times he's hitting his third step, engaging the left tackle, right tackle, and they're barely in their kick step. His get off is incredible. His straight line burst and just speed is awesome. I think he can. The other part too, I saw somebody ask, are they going to trade Trey Hendrickson? Like, absolutely not. They don't want to. I'm not saying they won't, but he doesn't make Trey Hendrickson expendable.
No,
he's not nearly ready to do that. But what you can do is you put him in the rotation with Myles Murphy opposite Trey Hendrickson and go be a bull in a china shop. Trey Hendrickson's going to win a lot, and you're just going to go blow up a tackle every now and again and just go create some disruption. He can do that, both run game and pass game. He's got to polish up his game. Again, I want to see production and athleticism for the first-round edge rushers. He has one of those in spades, and you're hoping that he's the next Daniil Hunter, whatever it might be. That's Shemar Stewart at 17 to the Bengals. Anything else on him?
No, again, like classic example, but I think this is the right kind of range for those guys, right? I don't want to take them in the top 5. 17, okay, I can talk myself into that.
Pick 18, they finally did it. Seattle Seahawks take an interior offensive lineman, presumably Gray Zabel, assuming he's going to play center or guard for the Seattle Seahawks. I don't know what John Schneider has announced yet or if they have discussed it, but Gray Zabel from North Dakota State, the guy who won all of our hearts at the Senior Bowl this year. Great pass protection at guard, at center, had an outstanding week, and gets him into the first round at pick 18.
Yeah, one of my favorite picks in the first round because they just didn't overthink it, right? They took the really good player at the glaring position of need and just mashed the two of them together, even though it violates their sort of philosophical ideals of what they like to do and player position value and all that kind of stuff. Gray Zabel will come in, start day one, upgrade one of their 3 interior positions. I don't know which guard spot or at center, wherever you want to play him. He can play all 3 of those positions. He will be a better player than the guy he's replacing at any of the 3. And that's your biggest weakness on this roster. So just get it done. Don't overthink it. So I love the pick. You know, a college tackle at North Dakota State, but he went to the Senior Bowl and I think was the best player at the Senior Bowl, regardless of position, consistently every single day, and did it whilst not just learning a new position, but learning 3 new positions at the same time. They had him lining up, you know, rep to rep at left guard, right guard, center, and it didn't matter which one he was playing. He was dominating his reps, and he was dominating them every single practice, every single day. Like, I genuinely think he was the best player at the Senior Bowl, and I think he'll walk into this team and like just be an immediate day one starter, an upgrade on the interior.
They have Kubiak, old school zone type of scheme. He moves well for that. One thing in the run game, I think he can do a better job angle wise, taking better angles and targets. I think it's a coaching thing for him. But he has all the skills there. And he's really good in pass protection. If he needed to hold up at left tackle or right tackle or at tackle generally, I bet he could. I mentioned on the show, Graham Barton last year, people thought he could play tackle, guard, or center. Zabel's that guy this year where I think there's probably some people who think he could do it all. So I think you've got some versatility there. But yeah, plug him in at guard, good pass protector. And after, not getting what they were trying to pursue in free agency at guard, they had to go to the draft and they did it. And they got 2 picks in the second round here. And that's the other thing. A lot of times I did mocks. I took BPA, non-guard position here, and I took a guard in the second. You're running out of first and second round guards, though. We'll see a few more later in the first. So I think that's part of the reason why Seattle had to do it here. So that's a pick for the Seattle Seahawks. Pick 19, Tampa Bay Bucs. Another one of the more interesting picks here. Emeka Egbuka goes here. I got a thing for non-perceived need picks, Sam. I know their receivers are old, but they just paid Mike Evans. They just paid Chris Godwin. They just drafted Jalen McMillan. Doesn't matter. They think Emeka Egbuka is too good to pass up, and they take him at 19.
Yeah, is this the most best player available, least need pick in the entire first round?
Yeah, I mean, it's not exactly, hey, we're drafting Randy Moss when Chris Carter and Jake Reed are already there, but those are my favorites. Those are the ones that you look back and you're like, wow, that was pretty smart. It's a good thing they did that. That's why CeeDee Lamb, when they already had Amari Cooper and they already had Michael Gallup in Dallas, similar idea. You can never have too many receivers, never have too many playmakers, and he's just a really good football player. And it's a little Chris Godwin insurance over the next couple of years.
I think Egbuka is a really interesting player because everybody reads him the same, but the question is how valuable is that and where do you take it, right? Like I'm a little bit lower on him than most people, but I still think I still sort of describe him and articulate him in the same way as pretty much everybody else. He's a really good number 2 receiver who's got great hands, who's got great work ethic, who can exploit zones extremely well, who's got some good run after the catch ability, who's got some power to his game as well. And it's just that he's not an elite number 1, right? And pretty much everybody sees that. And the question is just how high do you value that? Obviously, Tampa Bay values it very highly because they were willing to draft him at number 19, despite already having Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and Jalen McMillan. And I think there are other people that don't, that would rather chase the special upside or the guy that could be a number one, or maybe is more of a boom or bust prospect. But, you look at him and he is a really good player. I think what scars me a little bit, or what sort of tarnishes my view on him a little bit, is he was never the best receiver in his own team in college, right? And you just had this constant contrast of what he looks like versus a true number one first round top tier talent, whether it be Garrett Wilson, whether it be Marvin Harrison, whether it be now Jeremiah Smith, who will be a top 5 draft pick whenever he comes out. So you have this sort of constant contrast of like, he's not that. Now, to be fair, he didn't go where those guys went, right? He went 19 overall, not, in the top 5. So his draft status reflects that, but I that taints his sort of opinion in my eyes a little bit. Not to the point where I think he's like a 3rd round pick or anything, but it just, I think that's why I sort of shy away from him a little bit relative to a couple of other receiver prospects. But I agree with you. I like the process of saying, dude, we think this guy's a really good wide receiver. We're taking him even though we don't need him.
Yeah, and all the reasons you said, the fact that he was playing next to all those stars, higher first-round picks, better overall players, you would say, and you kind of lose the fact that he's just really good at a lot of things. And I mentioned on the show, like subtle catch point stuff, separates late hands, good hands. There's so many receivers in this class who are just dependable, and we call those Z receivers, and maybe you want to give them tighter splits and put them in the slot, and they're not going to go win one-on-one on the outside. Maybe there's not a lot of those guys in this draft, but there's a lot of good, highly productive players that you trust. And that's what he is. And look, they just re-signed Chris Godwin, but I don't know how much longer Godwin has coming off of a second major injury. So this is a little bit of insurance there. But as I always, in having 4 receivers, that's good football. And man, when you have 4 receivers, good luck covering all these guys. Good luck covering Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Jalen McMillan, Emeka Egbuka. That's putting Baker Mayfield in position to succeed. Do they have other needs? Could they have used more edge help, or Jahad Campbell, who we kept mocking to them? Maybe, but I like that quite a bit for the Bucs here.
Yeah, and also in this draft, where teams have been shying away from certain players with character concerns, everybody speaks immaculately about Egbuka, right? Yeah. His work ethic, his character, his leadership, all of that stuff. However much you do value that seems to be maybe his best traits. And in addition to being a very good football player. So if that's stuff that you value, I mean, you're going to rank him higher than other people would.
All right, pick 20, Denver Broncos go Jahdae Barron, cornerback out of Texas. I love this pick. Was one of my million mock drafts that I did. Picked him for the Broncos. Love the fit here, man. I really do. I know everybody wanted to give the Broncos a running back or fill out the depth chart. It's another one. There's not – you could look at the depth chart and say they have starters. They have Riley Moss. They have Jaquan McMillan in the slot. Who needs Jahdae Barron? Everybody needs Jahdae Barron. He's a great football player, and he could easily be better than Riley Moss as cornerback 2 opposite Patrick Surtain. And honestly, that's when Moss got hurt last year. I don't know how much of this is their thought process. When he was banged up, the Broncos pass defense took a step back, and they were not as good as teams avoided Surtain. And this gives you depth insurance and also just flexibility, because he could play inside, outside, and do it all. Very good player.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's a great football player. I think he's a lot like Brian Branch in that I genuinely think he could play every single position in the secondary and be fine, right? And I count that as in outside corner, slot corner, free safety, strong safety, split safety, like wherever you want to play him, I think he can play. For Denver, I think the most likely thing is he becomes the starting slot corner, and maybe he plays outside as the second corner. And then when they go to nickel, Riley Moss comes in and plays outside and he kicks into the slot. I think that's probably his role. But ultimately, I think Denver just looked at this guy and said, this dude is a baller. Like, he's an awesome player. He plays everywhere. He's so good. He upgrades the secondary. We'll figure out where he plays later on, but just bring this guy in. We want him.
Yeah, he's one of my favorite players in the draft. I always talk about that one play when he replaced the free safety and, picked off the crosser. I just think he's got a really good feel, tackles well. Texas trusted him playing in the box, playing linebacker level. So Good overall football player that, man, I really think he could be the starting outside corner, compete with Riley Moss right away, get slot snaps, wherever they want to fit him in, figure it out. But I like that Denver went back to their defense. The one other point I'll add, the goal is to beat the Chiefs, not just in individual games, but in the division, but specifically in those matchups where they have Xavier Worthy, they have Marquise Brown, they have these speed receivers, and they're going to try to chuck it deep next year. That's what Kansas City is going to try to do. They want to finally have an explosive offense again. Barron runs sub 4.4. Think he could run down the field with those guys. I think it's also, competing with the Chiefs. I'll talk about that with the Bills with their pick later too. So I like this a lot for Denver. All right, we're going to wrap it up. We got 12 more picks to go, but first, a quick word from our sponsors. Hey guys, Check the Mic is brought to you by our friends over at Timeline. You get 10% off your order of MitoPure at timeline.com by using code CheckTheMic at checkout. MitoPure is a supplement that can help you because it encourages cellular renewal. It works by promoting an essential cellular cleanup process that clears out dysfunctional mitochondria, aka your cell's battery packs. There are no supplements on the market that have better clinical research shown to be effective at targeting the effects of age-related cellular decline. So with regular use, you'll see and feel the difference in the form of improved energy levels, better workouts, faster recovery, more endurance, and more. In fact, MitoPure is shown to deliver double-digit increases in muscle strength and endurance without a change in exercise. MitoPure is the research-backed innovation that unlocks your fullest potential. So awaken the strength, power, and resilience already in you with the first and only supplement clinically proven to rejuvenate health at the cellular level. Again, Timeline's offering 10% off your order of MitoPure. Go to timeline.com/checkthemic. That's TIMELINE.com/checkthemic. Someone in the chat mentioned Trent McDuffie type for Jahdae Barron. In my notes, Trent McDuffie, Mike Sandristil type for me. And I just love that. Sandristil was a little spark plug for that Washington defense last year. I think Barron has that as well. Before we get to pick 21 here, you'll love this, Sam. Cowboys owner and GM Jerry Jones said that everyone had a long debate yesterday about Tyler Booker and another player for over 30 minutes. And you're going to sit here like, I'd love to know who this player is. Well, Jerry Jones is speaking, so we'll find out. Said it was funny how that exact scenario presented itself at 12. Team sources say, actually, it wasn't Jerry. The other player was Ole Miss defensive tackle Walter Nolen. So I love these either-or scenarios to look back on it 3-4 years from now and say, based off what we know, should they have gone Walter Nolen and Tyler Booker? I'll go on record and say I would have preferred Walter Nolen for that pick for anyone, but yeah, for Dallas. So we'll see what happens if they went Tyler Booker.
Yeah,
you don't always get that like the pick is the pick, and it's like, hey, they love this guy, but like they were legitimately debating. Those are the real debates that will happen. Appreciate the transparency from the Cowboys. All right, pick 21. Pittsburgh Steelers take Derek Harmon. Now, this was the first time we said, okay, is this Shedeur Sanders? Shedeur Sanders does not get drafted in the first round, so he doesn't go to Pittsburgh. They passed on him. The Browns and the Giants obviously both passed on him. The Browns have a chance to not pass on him going forward, but we learned some information about Shedeur. Derek Harmon goes to Pittsburgh, though, as they just continue to load up on that defensive line.
Yeah, and from Pittsburgh's point of view, they didn't take a quarterback, and they're probably not taking a quarterback because they don't have a second-round draft pick. So this was kind of like a referendum for them. Are we all in for the Aaron Rodgers thing, or are we going to have to take a quarterback in the first round, whether it's Shedeur, whether it's Jaxson Dart, whether it's Jalen Milroe, like whatever? And they ended up going, no, we're going to take Derek Harmon. Really good player, like pass rushing, defensive tackle, a guy that can disrupt, get in the backfield, adds to an already really good defensive front. Cameron Hayward somehow is still playing outstanding football at his age, but future-proofing that would not be a bad idea. Keanu Benton's a good player as well. And then that edge rusher group, TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, Nick Herbig, like that's an embarrassment of riches in terms of guys that can get after the quarterback and disrupt the play.
I want to reference my handy chart here again because I just think it tells a good story. This is the fourth defensive tackle off the board. There'll be another one later. Spoiler alert. But as you got what?
I was just going to say, so we've got Derek Harmon went from one of the ugliest uniforms in all of football to Oregon, who have a collection of the greatest uniforms you're ever going to see.
You lay off Michigan State. All right.
That specific uniform is disgusting.
You lay off. You just watch your mouth. Just telling you. Maybe even more in the future. We'll see. As Javon Kinlaw out there as an okay NFL, as he's making $15 million a year and the defensive tackle market is exploding. We see 4 tackles go in the top 21. There's another one that goes later. The Steelers will pay Harmon in my trusty chart here. He'll be the 63rd paid defensive tackle. 1.6th percentile of defensive tackles. So, again, when we talk about should you take a running back, a linebacker, a safety, it's not even just what you're paying them. It's how just valuable these players are. If you get a good player on a rookie contract, quarterbacks, they're in a whole different world. But non-quarterbacks, if you get first contract tackles, defensive tackles, edge rushers, receivers, but the trench players especially, as that market rises, the draft value goes through the roof. And I think that's a part. I think the defensive tackle class was strong. Actually, add that into that Cowboys discussion. I know I'm going off the rails here, Sam, but whatever. It's 1:40 in the morning. Like the Cowboys are going to pay Booker. He's going to be 17th paid guard. I probably mentioned that on the live show. Walter Nolen, who they were debating, would have been 52nd among defensive tackles. I hope that came up. I hope our friends in the Cowboys analytics department brought that up in the surplus value aspect of things. I'm sure they discussed it, and that's part of the discussion. But that is part of this decision-making process. And when we talk about best player available, value matters in that thing too, and positional value matters. All that to be said, the first round is where you get the really good players at the valuable positions. So even though the Steelers look loaded on the defensive line, I love this move even more because they're more loaded. Cameron Hayward's getting older, as you said, but who cares? Even when he's out there for the next year or two, man, can they get after the quarterback with Harmon and Hayward and Keanu Benton and 3 legitimate edge rushers. That is a fierce defensive front.
Yeah, and we really need to sell just how productive Derek Harmon was as a pass rusher last year. That guy had 55 pressures from a defensive interior alignment. That's a pass rush win rate of almost 18%. You know, that's good for an edge rusher, let alone an interior player. PFF pass rushing grade and true pass sets of 91. Like, this is a dude that absolutely cooked as an interior pass rusher, and adding him to the Steelers, where you already got maybe the best edge rushing situation in the NFL and Cameron Hayward, like, good luck blocking that.
I like it a lot, man. So 4 defensive tackles off the board. I think the Chargers may have wanted one of those guys at 22. They go running back Amarian Hampton from UNC. So second running back off the board, the consensus second running back, it's Hampton going to Jim Harbaugh, the Chargers. They want to run the ball. They got their bell cow, guy that had 30 carries 6 different times for UNC. We talked about Ashton Jeanty's workload. Hampton had a similar workload, not so much all across his entire career, but a lot of games where he was carrying the work, doing the heavy lifting, we'll say, at UNC.
Yeah, this was interesting because this was a lot of people put this as a common draft pick, and then the Chargers signed Najee Harris in free agency, and everyone kind of went, well, that's probably that done then, right? Najee Harris will be the running back. They didn't really invest in the position last year. They're probably not going to do it in the first round this year. And yet they did. They ended up coming back and grabbing Hampton. And on the one hand, I get it, right? He, I think, is the most physically impressive running back in this draft class. He's big, strong, fast, explosive, twitchy. You know, you can easily construct an argument that, like, this guy's a first round draft pick at running back, and I get it. I understand why you would do that, but like, I don't think he's nearly as special as Ashton Jeanty. And this is such a strong running back draft class that I would have come back later and gotten a player that might be close to Amarian Hampton. Certainly is a lot closer to him than he is to Jeanty. And it sounded like, if the reports are true, that this is the area where the teams were calling to trade back up, right? And the Chargers instead sort of turned down these trades to draft the running back. Like, if you could tell me that I could trade down to the bottom of the first or even into the top of the second, pick up extra draft picks and then draft my running back there, right? Draft a Travion Henderson or, whoever I want to take, or take Amarian Hampton. I mean, I would trade out in a heartbeat. So I wouldn't have made this move, but I get it. There's a lot to love about his tape.
The Giants' actual trade was giving up a 3 this year and a 3 next year. I assume something similar, even better, was on the board for the Chargers. So that's the interesting one to me is they took Hampton. If they moved back 12 spots to 34, right. Travion Henderson or Quinshon Judkins or whoever your next favorite running back is, Cam Scatterbo, whoever else you like. I don't know if they think Hampton's just the next bell cow type of running back, even more than Judkins and Henderson split time. Scatterbo's not as explosive and as a Hampton, and maybe that's the cutoff for them. 2 bell cow running backs, we get one of them. Where Jim Harbaugh run the ball, play action type of team. We'll figure out the tight end later. We'll figure out receiver later. We'll figure out defensive line later. They got their running back. That's my issue with the Chargers is they do have those other needs at some important positions.
And that's the thing. Like, start running through the counterfactual, right? Like, if I offered you, so if I'm the Chargers, the option is either I take Omarion Hampton or somebody's offering me like an extra couple of 3rd-round draft picks. I can drop back. I can take Mason Taylor at tight end. I can take Luther Burden at wide receiver. I could take Jaden Higgins at wide receiver. Kyle Williams, one of the wide receivers, whoever it is that fits your flavor. And then later on, I can grab a running back. I could grab Damian Martinez like in the 3rd round maybe. And I'm not sure that's materially worse than Omarion Hampton, right? I'm certainly not confident enough in it that I'm willing to turn down like extra draft picks and a wide receiver and stuff. I would do that. But to be fair, look, Hampton, again, most physically impressive running back in this draft class. The dude breaks a ton of tackles. He's difficult to get to the ground. He can make big plays. You and I are both a little concerned by his vision. I think it's inconsistent rather than downright bad. But there are definitely some plays where he just doesn't read it right, and he's hitting the wrong gap, or he's like undermining the leverage of his blockers, and doesn't make the play that he should. But I understand why you would draft him in the 1st round.
Some big playability in there too, and I'm interested to see where the Chargers go with this next one as well. So Omarion Hampton at 22. I also think that opens the door. They got to draft Willie Lampkin later. I mean, is Hampton anything without Willie Lampkin opening holes for him? I don't think so.
Well, can you take that chance?
You gotta. Matthew Golden is the pick at 23 for the Green Bay Packers. First wide receiver drafted in the 1st round since 2002. Astutely pointed out by NFL media. 2003 was when Matthew Golden was born. So before he was born, way back, Jalen Walker in the 1st round. What were your thoughts on Javon Walker? Sorry, not Jalen. It's late. I'm going to start saying names and just little.
Javon Walker was awesome for a while.
Javon Walker was amazing. Wasn't he the hero in the Brett Favre Monday night game against the Raiders? Like Walker had like 3,000 yards that night or something.
Yeah.
See, I remember some stuff. Golden. So just another body in the mix of this deep receiving corps. Dontavian Wicks and Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs and Jaden Reed. Hey, another guy added to the mix. Is he a speed threat? I don't know, but good route runner, gets open, and similar to Romeo Doubs for me as far as his skill set goes.
Yeah, similar to Romeo Doubs for you. I think there's some similarities to Emeka Egbuka as well, except I think he's got a broader range of outcomes. So whereas I think it's very tight what everybody believes Egbuka is, I think Golden could be more. Now, he could be less, but I think you can construct a world where Golden becomes a true number 1, do everything wide receiver, like a Garrett Wilson type of receiver, where he's an amazing number 1 in this offense. But there's also enough to be scary about that you couldn't be sure about that. I mean, he's never done that, right? He's done it for like 3 games at the college level. He has a terrible statistical profile for like a 1st round wide receiver draft pick, but he's got really good speed. Forget 4.29. Number 1, I just don't believe he ran that time. I think there's a glitch in that. I'm going to call him a 4.4 guy. Plenty fast. He's plenty fast enough because he's a really good route runner. He likes to vary his pacing, like he wins with separation as well as everything else. He's got good hands, I think. He's developed a lot in his career, but he didn't ever really dominate until right at the end, where Isaiah Bond was injured, where he became the number 1 guy, where he torched Georgia, where he torched Arizona State. And that's kind of it, right? His production profile is not there. but you say he's got kind of all this, he's got the physical tools, he's got the route running chops, he's got enough understanding of what he's doing. And if the arrow is pointed upwards, he can be a better player in the NFL than he was in college. So, there were people out there that haven't had him as wide receiver 1 in this draft class. You and I were both lower on him than most people, but I think you can paint a picture for Green Bay where he can become the number 1 that they're missing.
Yeah. I mean, the reason why Romeo Doubs came to mind is I just thought he was a slick route runner, in and out of the breaks, sets up corners, does a lot of things well. And I'm writing that he doesn't feel fast or dynamic. And then I wrote, then he goes and runs a 4.29. Like, I write this in all caps in my notes. Like, either I'm an idiot or maybe he's a great track runner. I don't know. So yeah, I'm interested. Like, usually when you get the 4.29 guys, you run them on over routes, you run them on deep posts, you set up 3 or 4 shot plays for them per game. What Christian Watson did for Green Bay, that is exactly what they've done with Christian Watson. And when his hamstrings are holding up, he's good at that. He is good at outrunning the defense and catching the ball every now and then after he does that. That's what Christian Watson is. That's his role. They expect more from Golden, I believe. And I think I just think he has a different skill set than Christian Watson. So yeah, you're right. I mean, he could be their number 1. And a lot of people like him. People I trust really like him. He didn't catch my eye as much as those other guys. And honestly, if he ran 4.45, I don't know if people like him as much, but that's what I think he plays with. He plays 4.4, so that's where I'm at.
Yeah. And I think they would. It would just be a different conversation. Like, I actually think because he was already getting first round hype before he ran the 4.29. He was. 4.29 was so surprising to everybody that it became the conversation. Whereas I actually think if you just unpack it and say, he's a really good route runner. I know the production isn't there, but actually look at his tape and look at what he's doing. This is some like high-end trait type of wide receiver stuff. It's just that it's like a sample size problem. It's almost like Darian Porter, the corner, but a bit more sample size. But it's that kind of world. It's like, this is first round tape. There's just not that much of it.
All right, let's go pick 24. Minnesota Vikings, Donovan Jaxson here. I think if you're can we try to remember all these what ifs? The Giants were trying to trade up, and they finally got it at 25. I think they offered the same thing to the Vikings. Of all the teams, the Vikings, with their 4 picks, I figured would take the extra 3 in next year's 3. I figured they would take it, but they were running out of guards. They were running out of if they were going to fill that left guard starting spot, they were running out of players. So they take Donovan Jaxson, again, presumably to play guard. He filled in unbelievably at left tackle for Josh Simmons, who gets drafted after him, ironically, in this draft. And Donovan Jackson's the pick here for the Vikings at 24. That makes the complete overhaul of the interior offensive line this offseason. Ryan Kelly at center, Will Fries, both guys coming over from the Colts in free agency, and now Donovan Jaxson at left guard.
Yeah, so on the one hand, I think it's a great fit. It's a great pick. On the other hand, as you said, it is interesting that they turned down the opportunity to trade out, and I think a lot of people kind of expected them to do that. I think you're right. The run on offensive linemen probably had a lot to do with that, particularly like the guards that were ranked pretty lowly in the consensus board going way higher than that.
Booker at 12, Zabel at 18. When we don't, I mean, we expected they could have gone at 25 or later because they're guards, right? They went high.
Right, really high. I mean, Tyler Booker was 28 on the consensus board. Gray Zabel was 27. So both those guys went a lot higher. For them to trade back and be confident in getting a starting guard, they probably weren't. They probably would have written that off. Like, if it's one or the other, we can get a starting guard or we can trade back. We might not be able to do both. So they elected to take the guy, complete the set, right? Complete the overhaul of the offensive line. And that was their mission this offseason. I mean, clearly, I don't know if there's a single team that had as defined an offseason mission as the Minnesota Vikings, who went out there and said, we are replacing the entire interior of this line in the space of a couple of months. And they get 2 free agents and they add a first-round caliber or first-round guard, and that's the new trio. Donovan Jaxson, as you said, amazing to go out there and fill in a left tackle. Elite movement skills for a guard. I mean, he looked like a tackle running drills at the combine, at least until he got hurt, and then looked like he didn't belong on the field. But when he was healthy, moving around, he looked like a tackle out there. His play at guard is impressive. He's got the size. He's got the strength. I think he steps in day one and completes that overhaul.
Yeah, solid all-around player, and the ability to hold up a tackle. When I'm scouting historically, Cooper Beebe did that at Kansas State, played a year at tackle, and I'm like, this dude does not belong at tackle, but he held his own.
Right.
A guy from the Eagles who went to Oregon State, I can't remember his name for a minute here, Isaac Seumalo did it at Oregon State and held up. I mean, those are impressive things to me. Guys that you don't think are going to play tackle at the next level, and they do it. But Jaxson has 33.5-inch arms, and if he had to kick out, it's just even more versatility. So that's the play there for the Vikings. And like you said, attacking the interior offensive line this offseason with free agency and now a draft pick. Once again, though, I'm curious about what they could have done. Could they have gotten Jaxson still at 34 and had 2 extra picks? They didn't seem to think so. So they didn't take the risk. Pick 25 was the Giants trading up for Jaxson Dart. We already discussed that. Just to touch on the Rams quickly. Texans traded out. To touch on the Texans quickly, if you tuned in as a Texans fan, I like the trade for the Texans. They moved down 9 spots. They've now picked up an extra 3 this year. They also picked up an extra 6 and a 7 this year, earlier in the draft. I think they're saying this is a deep draft. This is the last, I think, of the COVID year, 5th and 6th year players where there's just some good, solid football players. Nobody loves a good late special teamer, a good, dependable 300-snap player like Nick Caserio. They're going to load up on those solid back end of the roster types. I think that's what they're valuing, the Texans. So they pick up an extra 3, a 3 next year in this trade to move down 9 spots. I'll do that all day if I'm the Texans and don't have a player that I love at 25. So I like that move. Same thing for the Rams, man. Pick 26, that's where the James Pearce move we already talked about. That's where the Falcons traded up. So the Rams traded 26 and 101 for 46. So their next pick is going to be at 46 in round 2. They didn't have a second rounder from last year, so now they do. So they move down 20 spots, and they pick up a first rounder for next year. Again, I'll do that all day. I was on the other end of this last year. I can't believe the Rams gave up 2 2s for Braden Fisk. Well, now move down 20 spots and you pick up an extra 1. That's good job by Les Snead balancing last year's aggressive move with Braden Fisk. So just wanted to throw that out there.
The Texans, I mean, they're picking with the second pick of the second round, assuming they don't trade out of that again. There's some really good players that are still on the board. Now, maybe not offensive line. Like if you wanted to fix the offensive line with your top pick, there's been a drop off now. I think there's a tier drop, but some elite level prospects have fallen out of the first round. Guys like, now some of them for reasons, right? Guys like Will Johnson or Mike Green or Donovan Ezeraku, but there's some, like, you can get a really talented player at the top of the second, having already, added draft picks.
That's when the trade down always feels great. It's like, I would have taken this guy at 25 and I picked up 2 picks. The Texans are very much in position, or if someone does want to trade up for a quarterback, they are in prime position for that as well.
Right.
All right. Where are we now? 5 more picks, 6 more picks. Baltimore Ravens at pick 27, Malachi Starks from Georgia. Another somewhat common mock draft pick. They add another safety to the mix, another versatile safety to go with Kyle Hamilton and Ardarius Washington back there.
Yeah, love it. I mean, Kyle Hamilton and Marlon Humphrey, they give you the flexibility to be able to basically plug any defensive back you want in, move those guys around to make it work. Malachi Starks, I think, has got really nice range for a free safety, allows Kyle Hamilton to be closer to the line of scrimmage where he does his best work. Great fit, great value. Like this pick a lot.
Love flexibility in the secondary, just a good overall football player. Played faster than his general combine measurables. I think he's got some man-to-man chops as well. So if they do want to go man up against tight ends, man up against difficult, bigger slots, I think there's so much flexibility that Malachi Starks adds to the secondary the same way Kyle Hamilton does. So good smart pick here by the Ravens. Wasn't sure if they'd go safety. I thought there would be some good trench options there, but there was, a lot of the edge rushers came off the board. All the defensive tackles came off the board. So they draft the first safety here in Malachi Starks. Was there a lot of people were telling me Nicky Manwari, there's no way he's fallen out of the first round, right?
That's true. There were people that said that.
I'm just reminded of Nicky Manwari. But this is what happened. All the valuable positions, right? All the tackles, defensive tackles, and edges were coming off the board.
I mean, dude, forget Nick Emanwari. If someone had told you that Will Johnson was going to fall out of the first round like that, nobody would have predicted that, even with the injury.
There's got to be the injury, not running. There's got to be something there. Because he's a good football player, man. Somebody's going to get a good, high upside football player in round 2. And if you look at the teams that have 2 picks, Seattle, the Rams, the Bears, like if I took him in the first with the Bears should take him with one of those 2s. See what happens with Will Johnson. Anything else on Starks? Again, a lot of people like him as a pure free safety. They lose Marcus Williams, who was a pure free safety. If that's all they want Starks to do, that's fine. I also think there's some other versatility to his game, though, as well. Yeah,
so we mentioned this on the broadcast. He was an interesting player because the 40 time didn't blow anybody away. It was, 4.5 flat, which is fine, but not spectacular. But when they made them do football drills at the combine, now they got tracking data. He had the fastest miles per hour of every single drill when he was doing football movements. So he might not be a track star, but you ask the dude to go out there and do a functional safety football drill, and he's the fastest guy you're going to find. So a great example of we haven't quite got to the level of being able to, fully guarantee, correctly identify play speed, but we're getting there. And that's a great example, I think, of demonstrable play speed versus time speed.
Detroit Lions at pick 28. They go Tyleik Williams, defensive tackle out of Ohio State. So now the 5th defensive tackle on the board. I won't read my chart, but yeah, he's going to be cheap relative to what the market is. So yeah, add him to DJ Reader, add him to Alim McNeill. More big boys up front here for the Lions.
Yeah, I like the pick. I like Tyleik Williams. I think I said he reminded me of Pat Williams, the old Minnesota Vikings sort of nose tackle back in the day. He defends the run in a sort of different way to almost everybody else. He defends it with pop, right? He jacks back offensive linemen and just resets the line of scrimmage in a way you don't see people do. He doesn't necessarily two gap. He doesn't necessarily just hold the point and need space. He moves those guys on contact and resets the line. Pat Williams was great at that back in the day. What's confusing or interesting is the Lions went with an interior player like Tyleik Williams, who I think was a first-round caliber player. I don't have a problem with where they drafted him, but they passed up on edge rushers to do it. And I think edge rusher is a much more acute need. And okay, Mike Green, you can say there's a reason for that in terms of his sexual assault accusations in his past. But Ezeraku, passing Ezeraku to grab Tyleik Williams is an interesting move.
No, it is. I think that's another one we'll look back on, especially wherever Ezeraku lands, because I loved that fit. I also thought he was a Dan Campbell type, smart, good football player. But yeah, Tyleik, look, the other 4 defensive tackles that went higher all have better pass rushing chops. Mason Graham, Kenneth Grant, Walter Nolen, and Derek Harmon. They're all better pass rushers than Tyleik. Tyleik might be the best pure run defender out of all those guys, the best at holding the point, resetting the line of scrimmage. So yeah, it's not that they had the choice. They couldn't choose those other 4, but they chose essentially the old school 2-down run stuffer type here, who might be able to push the pocket a little bit on 3rd down. But yeah, just an interesting way to go here for the Lions, and some insurance as DJ Reader's heading into the last year of his contract. Alim McNeill's banged up, and just adding more big boys up front here for Detroit.
Yeah, they've got,
he's
they can come back to the edge rusher.
He is a stout run defender, and like I was saying earlier, last year, you could not find a 330-pounder that you could trust, and there's a bunch of them in this draft. And the Lions, there's not many year over year, and the Lions got one of those guys.
I mean, they're going to have a heavy rotation now on the interior, right? Alim McNeill is coming back from that ACL. Maybe he gets slow played into the season, but it's going to be Alim McNeill, DJ Reader, Tyleik Williams, Onwuzurike. They're going to be rotating those big bodies inside, and I think there's space for all of them, but like you said, Reader's hitting the last year of his deal. He's not going to be there long term. I don't think there's a problem in terms of redundancy. My not even my problem. I just find it interesting that they decided he was good enough that we're not even going to take a guy like Ezeraku. I think could be an immediate starter opposite Aiden Hutchinson and give you way more snaps.
it's a fun one to look back on because there's still a lot of edge rushers left, but the next wave of whatever you think of Mike Green, wherever he ends up falling, Princely McMillan as a pure pass rusher, Ezeraku as an all Nick Scorton, Jack Sawyer, Braden Swinson, JTT. There's a lot of those guys. Maybe they'll grab another one, but they go D tackle first here at least here in the first round. 4 more. Washington, Josh Connerly, Oregon offensive tackle. This was a fun one. Trying to figure out if Connerly was going to sneak into the back end of the first or go to the second. Washington gets Connerly. He's only 21 years old, young, moves really well. I think he's got some of that theoretical upside and fits a need here as they try to figure out opposite Laramie Tunsil, who they traded for at left tackle. They have a right tackle question, last year's third rounder, Brandon Coleman, who had some ups and downs filling in at left tackle last year. So you got a battle here at right tackle now opposite Tunsil.
Yeah, and I like it because of that. I think they brought in Laramie Tunsil, obviously secures the left side, brings in a top-tier left tackle. But you got an elite quarterback now. So let's make sure both tackle spots are in good order and are upgraded from a year ago. So you bring in Connerly, a guy that impressed people at the Senior Bowl. He got kind of memed because he got wrecked by Mike Green on that one rep, but he got voted one of the practice players of the week by his opponents, not by journalists or whoever, by the people that went up against him. So obviously his Senior Bowl was better than that one rep where he got run over. He impressed people there, moving different sides of the line, right? Doing that thing of multiple positions again, which is not easy to do. So there's a lot of really good football minds, offensive line guys who really like Connerly. And he was a guy that was a sort of fringe first round guy in the consensus big board, but I think a lot of people were saying he might go earlier than that.
He moves well, tries to use his hands independently, which I think is huge. Has some, I would say, some core strength issues. It gets moved back a little bit on one of those reps. You kind of saw him anchor. I think that might take a couple of years, like it does with a lot of offensive linemen. But like I said, he's only 21. So developmental tackle prospect. Maybe he competes at guard early on, competes at right tackle. But like that pick. And as I have to keep mentioning, Nate Tice liked him, and his dad, Mike Tice, said he's the best offensive lineman in the draft. So I like highlighting the fact that with hundreds of evaluators around the NFL, there will be so many opinions. There's somebody in some building who's like, oh, Connerly was my favorite tackle. I can't believe you got him at 29. What a steal. So Washington getting Connerly there. Buffalo Bills at pick 30. Cornerback Maxwell Hairston from Kentucky. We had linked the Bills to a corner quite a bit. They just got rid of former first-rounder Kyer Elam from Florida. My analysis might be the same as what it was with Elam. You got a man coverage corner. You could do this and that. But Hairston, incredible athlete, ran 4.28, shows up on the field. And I think he is fantastic in man-to-man situations. I know you like him in both man and zone. But if the Bills are going to try to play a lot more man coverage with him and Christian Benford on the other side, I think Hairston has that type of ability.
Yeah, the man-to-man stuff is obvious, right? Like he's quick, fast, twitchy. You can see him. He's sort of feisty and he can run with anybody. And he's got the kind of movement, hops, and the explosion. There were some rough coverage busts in zone earlier in the season. I was like, maybe he's just a man corner only. But the more you watch him, the more you're like, actually, he's really good in zone as well. Like he can read it. I don't know what happened on those early busts. Maybe that was just adjusting to the new season. But they cleared up, and he was making some really nice plays in zone as well. So I ended up concluding he's not scheme dependent. He can work in any system or a system, like Buffalo, where some games they want to play zone, some games they want to play man. He can do both of them. Like they can swap schemes week to week, and he works in all of it. So I really liked him. The speed played. Like unlike Matthew Golden, who he ran a 4.29 and nobody saw that on tape. Hairston ran a 4.28 and it looked like it on tape, including it, by the way, against Texas, where he was able to run down those speedy receivers. Yeah,
I liked Hairston the more I watched him. Again, I think all that Deonte Banks a couple years ago, he ran fast and he had that recovery speed. Banks hasn't become a great player, but he had that type of speed that showed up on the field. I think Hairston has some of that. He breaks passes up. He makes a lot of plays on the ball. So, yeah, he was adjacent to some coverage busts. I don't think he's I don't think he's an elite cornerback prospect. He's a good late first-round cornerback prospect who's an awesome athlete. And again, the Bills, I keep mentioning the man coverage because that was the strategy they tried to employ a couple times against the Chiefs. And the Bills are in this world now. You talked about Seattle's got to just do something different and draft a guard. I think the Bills might be so good that all they should think about is beat the Chiefs. You know, how do I beat the Chiefs? How do I beat the Chiefs? And if they want to play man coverage against the Chiefs, they got a guy, I think, that could do that, that can hang with Worthy, that can hang with some of the speed that the Chiefs are trying to deploy down the field. So I think there's some of that. Not making the pick for that reason, but I think, you know, building that defensive strategy to be able to do that and compete with the Chiefs in those playoff games. Sound good?
Yep.
Speaking of the Chiefs, they're supposed to pick at pick 31, but they didn't. The Eagles, who had been reportedly trying to trade up for about 10 straight picks, they trade up one spot. They finally get a team to take their draft picks off their hands. They trade a fifth rounder, I think pick 165, to move up one spot because for about an hour and a half, they were trying to trade up for Campbell, the first linebacker off the board, Alabama, and the Eagles get Campbell here at pick 31.
Yeah, I mean, I love this pick for Philadelphia. I love it a little bit less for Nakobe Dean, who I really like as a player, and now it's pretty tough to see him seeing the field that much. But Campbell's a beast. I mean, that guy's an all-around threat as an off-the-ball linebacker. You now plug him in next to Zach Bond. You can use him on the blitz as well as a pass rusher, as an add-on rusher. I mean, that dude is everything you want in a modern off-the-ball linebacker on a defense. It's already like arguably the best defense in the NFL. It's another, I mean, I would say it's like, how did Howie do it? But he was trying to trade up for 10 picks. He got lucky.
I just love those stories because he was willing to give up. He was going to give up probably the Giants trade, maybe like 2 3s at some point to move up 10 spots. And at the end of the day, he still got his guy and only gave up a 5. And he's like, oh, this is a win. I was going to give up these other 2 third-rounders. And then that third rounder is going to become like the next whoever. And you're going to say it's the next Milton Williams. You know, the butterfly effect of all of these things are just fascinating to me.
And imagine how terrified you would be if you were willing to trade up, 10 spots to snag this guy. Everyone keeps saying, no, we're making our pick. We're not taking the deal. And you're like, come on. Like, I want this guy. You're watching pick, just desperately hoping that your guy doesn't go. That's got to be even more nerve-wracking than, just trying to be disciplined and being patient and hoping your guy drops to your spot.
Yeah, and, Howie and the Eagles, I don't know, have they drafted a first-round linebacker in a long time? Probably not. It's almost all trench players until last year they go corner. I think they have that philosophy, which is build, in the trenches first, of course, but when the best linebacker's on the board, and it's pretty clear, as in this draft class, that's where you go get him. Just like the top corner on the board last year was Quinyon Mitchell, and they took him. So they're doing a good job of picking their spots, trusting the board. I love Campbell as a player. I think he could do it all. There's a little bit of a shoulder concern. It's a yellow. Would you say a yellow?
The yellow flag.
Not a red flag, a yellow flag on the shoulder. Need to see how he recovers from the surgery, but not terribly concerning. He can blitz. He can do it all. You also mentioned maybe he's a Nakobe Dean replacement for sure in a year next to Zach Bond. So you're just solidifying that defense.
The last first-round linebacker that the Philadelphia Eagles drafted was?
The Eagles? I'm thinking like Jim Johnson defense.
Not quite that. No, this isn't even right. He wasn't he was a defensive end. That's just a lie. He's just listed incorrectly.
Connor Barwin.
No, it was Marcus Smith.
Oh, geez. Was that the draft we just rewatched, or was that 2012?
That was 2014.
Oh, 14. They had, in a 3-year period or 2-year period, they had Danny Watkins, the 26-year-old fireman, and Marcus Smith.
Yes.
Those were 2 of the most surprising and very bad.
2 of the wildest draft picks. Yeah.
Yes. Anyway.
Dude, you have to go back. I'm in the 90s and they haven't drafted a linebacker yet.
Really? That's how good Campbell is. Legit, though. I mean, he's awesome.
The last first round, the last legitimate. Oh, no, that's the second round. They haven't drafted one like ever.
Wow. History was made here tonight. Howie Roseman and the Eagles.
Seriously? Okay.
Somebody in the chat saying it was in the 70s. Don't keep going. You're not going to find it. It's in the 70s.
I found it. According to this, the last first-round linebacker that the the Philadelphia Eagles drafted was Jerry Robinson in 1979.
79. Someone in the chat had it. That's awesome. I can't believe there's almost 2,000 people watching us here at 2:15 a.m. in the morning Eastern time too. Appreciate
to learn
you guys.
about 1979 players.
We're just trying to bring it here. We're trying to reward you with trivia from night. You'll go to a party tomorrow night and ask someone, see if they know.
We're all learning about Jerry Robinson together.
Oh, last pick. It's the Chiefs. They take Josh Simmons.
Sorry, Josh Simmons.
They take Josh Simmons, the offensive tackle from Ohio State. Again, if he doesn't get hurt, he's going a lot higher. Prototypical left tackle. This quest to find the next long-term left tackle for Kansas City, multi-year quest here, and looks like it's going to land on Josh Simmons here. Fascinating process by the Chiefs, who, by the way, had to be wondering if the Eagles were going to take Simmons. They take offensive linemen all the time. I wonder how much of that community. Who's the player? Tell me who the player is. You know, I wonder how much they communicate here.
Yeah, I mean, so obviously they brought in Jalon Moore in free agency, gave him a pretty tidy sum of money. So I think Simmons now becomes like a contingency plan at both tackle spots. You know, if Jalon Moore doesn't work out, right, it's small sample size of him starting, you can plug him back in at left tackle. If Jalon Moore does work out, it gives you the freedom to maybe move on from Juwan Taylor at right tackle, who hasn't really lived up to the money you're paying him. And in either scenario, it gives you the ability to slow play Josh Simmons coming off that patella injury, which is, you know, pretty significant knee injury. Like that's more concerning than your standard ACL tear or whatever, right? That's something to at least be conscious about how you ease him back into a lineup. So I think it's a great fit for both sides, right? Kansas City gets to add another tackle, another lineman to keep working on that group. And Josh Simmons gets to go to a team where he doesn't need to play week one, where he can theoretically, you know, look to be a succession plan at one of two spots.
I know a lot of people love Simmons, and there's a lot to like about his game. He looked really smooth in pass protection. I think he's a little lungy. I didn't see people talk about that. Maybe it's my eyes. Little lungy, pretty good run blocker, but he has all the tools at left tackle. If there's a concern, you know, I'm a production guy. He had one terrible year at San Diego State, one pretty good year at Ohio State in 2023. And then last year looked like he was on this first round trajectory. So he's gotten better every year, but you know, it's taken him a little bit of time. So he's pointing in the right direction, has the injury. And yeah, we might look at this one and say the Chiefs played this extremely well with like the halfway deal for Jalon Moore. Simmons takes over and they don't have to play this game of Donovan Smith for a year and this guy for a year, and maybe DJ Humphries is okay. At least get this left tackle spot locked down, and they'll, you know, they had to opt out. They stepped away from Joe Thuney to kind of like open this up as an option to make sure the tackle is sorted out in the coming years here.
It's kind of funny that these sort of Super Bowl contending teams at the bottom of the first round for the last couple of years have been sort of playing these games, trading with each other, right? Like Buffalo trading out of their spot to Kansas City to let them take a wide receiver that they weren't going to take. Kansas City letting the Eagles jump them to grab a player that they might have been in the market for. Like they're kind of, I don't know if if they're informing each other of who they're planning on picking before they make these moves, or if they're just playing these weird high stakes games of chicken at the bottom of the first round.
We probably asked the same question if you're moving up one pick, you're probably communicating, because you know, it's not like if the Chiefs say, hey, we want Josh Simmons, is that the guy that you know, or it's not like if the Eagles say, hey, we really want Jahad Campbell. The Chiefs aren't gonna be like, oh, we're going to take Simmons, but we really want Campbell now. They're not going to change.
Right.
But the Eagles moved up one pick to go get Jalen Carter a couple years ago. I wonder if that was communicated. I don't know. I
mean, we should ask our boss, Mike T, whether this happens. But I would, yeah, if I'm the Chiefs and the Eagles call and they're like, hey, we want to come up one spot, we'll give you this pick. I mean, I would be wanting to know who they're picking, right?
Yeah, for whom?
Now, I don't know. I would always say, who are you picking? Now, I don't know if they will answer that. If they say, we're not going to tell you, take the deal or don't. I don't know whether that often occurs, but I would absolutely be like, dude, I'm not doing anything until you tell me who you're taking.
Yeah, it probably doesn't matter because you're also not going to change your pick. But I don't know, from a curiosity standpoint, you're right. I think it's more interesting when conference rivals trade, division rivals trade. not so much Chiefs Eagles, but Chiefs Bills last year, Chiefs Ravens a few years ago. We're talking first round picks changing hands for Orlando Brown, for teams that are competing to get to the Super Bowl. Those are interesting things. That's the first round.
So
we just covered 64 available. Picks. Yeah.
Will Johnson, Michigan corner, fell out of the first round. Mike
consensus
Green,
number 12. Mike Green, consensus number 18.
Right. Now, Will Johnson, concern, injury, didn't run a 40, the agility drills were bad. So those are issues. Mike Green, his issue is multiple sexual assault accusations in his past, neither of which amounted to anything, but are at least there. Luther Burden III fell out of the first round, wide receiver from Missouri, former, 5-star recruit, high-end recruit. Some attitude questions about him as well. Also a down year that he's coming off. Nick Emenwari, the South Carolina safety that blew up the combine, slipped out of the first round. Donovan Ezeraku, the Boston College edge rusher, slipped out of the first. Obviously, Shedeur Sanders slipped out of the first. Anyone else that you would shout out as an obvious best available?
No, that's the group there. Ezeraku, Jaden Higgins. Did you mention Jaden Higgins, Iowa State?
No.
He didn't fall, but he was a guy that we thought could sneak into the back end of the first. If we're talking best available, I think he's one of the best available for me.
Yeah, I mean, players that we thought might sneak into the first, Nick Scorton, the Texas A&M edge rusher, Mason Taylor, the LSU tight end, Travion Henderson, the Ohio State running back, Carson Sweshinger, the UCLA linebacker, Trey Amos, the corners, Trey Amos from Ole Miss, Savone Revel, the Eastern Carolina cornerback. So those guys didn't make it.
Yeah, that's the group. So this happens every year. You're like, wow, the first 10 picks, their teams are gonna say we would have taken this guy in the first, and we got him in the second. That's what's gonna happen tomorrow night. A lot of good players available here. I think there's position-wise, I think there's a wide receiver run.
Yeah,
that's gonna happen. I think I predicted early in the draft process the running back run. Travion Henderson, Quinshon Judkins, Caleb Johnson. I don't know how many others sneak into the second, but maybe in the second plus third, there'll be a lot of running backs. We're starting to run dry on tackles. That's why they go high. We're starting to run a little bit thin on defensive tackles, but I think some of those guys, still get picked. They're going to get picked high. Still a lot of good edge rushers there, though.
Yeah.
Different styles. Uman Mielen is a pass rusher. Ezeraku, who you mentioned. Jack Sawyer is just a good, dependable player. JT Tuamalau. I call him JTT because his name's JT and then his last name's T, right? JTT. Someone asked. All right, man. 2.5 hours. I think that's our cadence. It's our cadence. Will had no idea what he was getting into here.
I mean, it's an exciting first round. We have to shout out the couple of super chats who got in. Our guy Weeb, who sent in $100 to have a few beers on him, and who was the second guy that sent one in? I forgot.
Andrew James. Andrew James has a comment here. Can anyone honestly say Shedeur is not better than Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, Jameis Winston, Mason Rudolph, Anthony Richardson, Daniel Jones, or a washed-up Aaron Rodgers? So he's listing the quarterbacks for the Browns, Giants, Colts, and presumably the Steelers. Fair question from Andrew James.
Yeah, I mean, I would view Shedeur the same way as the Will Levis thing, right? Teams obviously decided we're not comfortable at the top of the first round for him. The team that traded back into the first round went for Jaxson Dart, but now there's a bunch of teams who still need quarterbacks sitting at the top of the second round. I would absolutely draft Shedeur Sanders at the top of the second round and try it there. Like, again, the chances of him, working out as a second round pick relative to number 2 overall are much smaller, but you still roll the dice.
I'm with you, man. Take shots. I can't wait to see what happens tomorrow night. Browns are sitting there on the clock at pick 33. Texans are at pick 34. We'll have all the trade rumors tomorrow. We're going to do it again tomorrow night. We're going to start at 6:30. The draft starts at 7. We'll ramble for 30 minutes, and then we'll get into round 2. Touch on all the picks. What does it mean? Recap every team. Talk about all the news live, and then we'll do a recap. I don't think we'll go pick by pick on the recap, Sam. That'll be a little too crazy, but we'll recap day 2 and see how it goes. We'll hit on all the big stories one more time, and you'll have an audio podcast for that as well. So if you're listening on audio, there'll be an extra bonus one on Saturday morning or early Saturday morning after day 2. Got all that?
Yeah.
Thanks to everybody thanks to everybody who even spent a minute of this 7.5 hours with us. We appreciate you. We appreciate the super chats. We appreciate the regular chats, the regular listeners. I can't believe we're doing this and you're supporting it and we're having fun just talking some draft, man.
That's the thing. Like, forget the draft coverage, forget being here at 2:30 in the morning, all this kind of thing. Again, this is our first year out on our own doing this. Like, you guys all came with us. You guys are part of this audience that we didn't know was going to exist when we left and came out and joined the 33rd team and left PFF. So thank everybody for being here, watching this, for participating, for contributing, for consuming everything. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Let's do it again tomorrow. That's it for us tonight. We'll see you again tomorrow night with more Check the Mic.